Good morning. It is 6:30, coming up on 6:31 on Friday, February 21st, 2020, and it is cold. It's 22, but it feels much colder. It's only get up to 33 today. We have a few clouds in the sky. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. Our headlines this morning. Mayor Mike Smano, he says he made a deal with slumlords that sends a strong message to building owners. Connecticut withdraws the plan for tolls on Westchester's border. We'll tell you how Westchesterians managed to do that. I think I invented a word. Kia recalls SUVs, vans for an electrical problem. If you own one, stay tuned. Representative Nita Lowy, she's on her way out, but she hopes that Mike Bloomberg is on his way in. She endorsed him yesterday. Congestion pricing in New York City may be done for, and we'll tell you why. And as you probably know by now, Roger Stone got 40 months, and the intelligence sources here in the United States are saying the Russians are at it again. The president flipped out, fired a guy, according to many reports we have, that made the report and hired a guy, well, that may or may not tell him those kinds of things. Those stories and more coming up right here on Radio Westchester. Once again, it's cold, and as you know, we need to get to the weather first, and then we'll get to those stories. There's a lot going on. This is Radio Westchester. All right, time to take a look at the weather, and it is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com, and as we said, it's 22 on our thermometer here, and on the report we have, but it feels colder. What with the wind chill, it feels to be in the single digits. It's cold out there, folks, but it is winter time. We've been getting away scot-free. No clouds in the sky. That's good. And today's forecast, sunny. The temperature getting up to 33. Not much beyond that. Now, tonight, clear skies. The temperature once again going down to 22. Saturday, lots of sunshine, breezy, and the temperature getting back up to where we're used to these days, about 46, maybe even 50. Sunday, sunny. The high will be 50 degrees. The overnight low will be 34. And again, the weather brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. Let's get to those stories. Our top story this morning, and many are tied for it. We're going to skip to one, though. We made a call at the line of scrimmage because after all what's been going on a national level and the local people we've interviewed, this is our top story. Representative Nita Lowy says she's endorsing former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg for president one day after he participated in the 9th Democratic debate. Well, proving she's no frontrunner, that's for sure. The Bloomberg campaign said 3 members of Congress are now endorsing him, including Nita Lowy. In a statement, Lowy praised his leadership, support for progressive causes, and his commitment to repair the U.S. reputation abroad. The Congresswoman said, quote, "After 4 years of the damage Donald Trump has inflicted on our nation, we need someone who knows how to get things done from day one in the Oval Office." And as you might expect, some reports are coming out now saying he spent a record-breaking $400 million already in the months since he declared his candidacy. And indeed, many pundits today saying he may well, with the money he has, be able to overcome his poor performance in the first debate. This out of Yonkers this morning, a landlord there pleaded guilty on Wednesday to 10 separate violations of state fire and building code breakages issued between 2010 and 2018. Aurelio Unsunkeo, again, that's Aurelio Asunkeo, had been dodging warrants for more than 70 building code violations before he was arrested in January 2019. He owned several buildings, including 4 on Riverview Place and another on nearby Beach Street. As part of his plea deal, Asunkeo will have to pay $50,000 in fines. Officials say he no longer owns any rental properties in the city. Mayor Spano says the plea deal sends a strong message, and we quote, "While we have a very good landlord, or set of very good landlords in this town, for those who are not so good, you will be prosecuted." It is 6:36. My fingers are stuck. Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont's plan to collect tolls on I-684 is off the table. This story in News 12 today. Lamont first proposed tolls for tractor-trailers in the 1-mile stretch on the Westchester, Connecticut border to pave the way for his state highway upgrades. But a lack of support brought the plan to a halt. Westchester lawmakers have been against the move from the start, and they hope it stays that way. Westchester County Executive George Latimer says his administration, quote, had serious issues with this plan from its inception. So, too, Bedford Town Supervisor Chris Burdock added, the decision is a great relief to Westchester County. Governor Andrew Cuomo yesterday blamed retaliatory efforts by the federal government for the lack of approval of his congestion pricing program. The MTA, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, is hoping to launch the toll plan to discourage drivers from entering crowded parts of New York City, of course, Manhattan, and to raise money for the transit system out of one of our pockets into another, I guess. The goal is to start tolling in 2021, but the plan needs federal approval. And Cuomo told reporters Thursday that he believes the Federal Highway Administration is purposely dragging its feet. Again, our conversation yesterday with Andy Spano, quite remarkable in its openness about how governments retaliate when people don't do what it is the government wants when it comes to voting for them, supporting them, etc. And it happens on all sides. It is 6:38. Kia is joining its affiliate Hyundai in recalling thousands of vehicles in the U.S. because water can get into a brake computer, cause an electrical short, and possibly a fire. This out of the Associated Press and News 12 this morning. The Kia recalls cover nearly 229,000 Sedona minivans from 2006 through 2010 model years. Also covered are Sorento SUVs from 2007 through 2009. Kia is telling owners to park their vehicles outside and away from structures and other vehicles until the problem can be fixed. Put it down the street. The company says its documents posted Thursday by the U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration that the moisture can get into the anti-lock brake control computer and cause an electrical short. Well, I thought the computers were helping our automobiles. It is 6:39. This story out of several outlets yesterday. America is blundering into a new Russian election meddling hall of mirrors that's already doing Moscow's work, tearing fresh political divides and threatening again to tarnish democracy's most sacred moment, a national election. Revelations Thursday about intelligence assessments that Russia has launched a new interference effort to help re-elect Donald Trump. And the president's furious reaction marked the return of a recurring nightmare for the country just 9 months before a new presidential election. The uproar over Russia's disinformation drive to hurt Hillary Clinton and help Trump 4 years ago cast a cloud that the current president has never been able to escape. The president's defensive response to a new Russian interference drama, colored by his belief that all such revelations, quote, as a deep state assault on his own legitimacy, already appears to be exacerbating the damage caused by Moscow's meddling. This out of CNN this morning. Trump's preoccupation with suggestions that he only won because of Russia sparked destabilizing and willful presidential behavior, at least this report says so, including the firing of FBI Director James Comey that led to years-long investigations. Well, nonetheless, the real issue now, though, is the report to the president by the NSI and by the Director of National Intelligence, and his reaction changing the person who runs that organization. It is 6:41. Roger Stone was sentenced to 3 years and 4 months in prison yesterday for witness intimidation and lying to Congress, as the judge presiding over his case said a longer term behind bars would be inflated, and this the judge said. So this didn't come from the Justice Department necessarily. U.S. District Court Judge Amy Berman Jackson said jail time instead of probation was necessary because Stone's threats and obstruction led to, quote, an inaccurate, incorrect, and incomplete report from the House of Representatives. Quote, she said, this is intolerable to the administration of justice, and the court should not sit idly by, shrug its shoulders, and just say, it's Roger being Roger. The Fed's initial sentence recommendation called for up to 9 years in prison, which Berman herself said was, quote, inflated and greater than necessary. Stone's defense team sought no time. Stone was convicted in November by a jury of 9 women and 3 men on 7 counts of lying to Congress, obstruction of justice, and witness tampering. Stone, who was on supervised release, was also ordered to undergo substance abuse testing, perform 250 hours of community service, and pay a $20,000 fine. For those of you who love to follow these kinds of issues, we took a look at a couple of polls for you. Now, the swing state voting, and this comes out of the New York Post this morning. President Donald Trump leads Democrats in Wisconsin and trails them in Pennsylvania, while the matchups in Michigan are tight. This according to a poll let loose on Thursday. The 3 critical Rust Belt states delivered Trump narrow wins in 2016, but the races are close, 9 months ahead of Election Day. This was the Quinnipiac poll, the university's first swing state poll in the 2020 election cycle. And some of the information they provided, they said 3 different states, 3 different scenarios, 1 constant: the economy. It's a top issue for voters, and it's giving President Trump a strong tailwind, according to Quinnipiac polling analysts. The issues voters chose as their most important show a big divide. Voters citing the economy as the number 1 issue are voting overwhelmingly for President Trump, but the exact opposite is true for voters who say health care or climate change are their top issues. Now, about Bernie voters, F.H. Buckley, conservative writer in the New York Post today, talked about a new poll there, shows Bernie Sanders with a sizable lead over his rivals for the Democratic nomination. And moderate liberals are beginning to wonder whether their party has a death wish. President Trump would like nothing better than to campaign against a self-proclaimed socialist who'd destroy our economy, hollow out our military, and open our borders wide, according to this piece. And so Trump seems likely to defeat anyone the Dems put up, if it's in the Sanders realm, that is. Taking the long view, though, Sanders' popularity should be a cause for concern for Trump voters and for Trump. According to a recent Quinnipiac poll, the same poll we cited before, 53% of Democratic voters under 35 back Sanders, and support for socialism is especially strong among the young. And the net of the story is most Americans say they would vote for a socialist, and more than a third between 18 and 34. By the way, most Americans say they wouldn't vote for a socialist, pardon me, but more than a third between 18 and 34 say that they would. And so in 2016, Trump asked us to remember the unemployed blue-collar worker in the heartland. Today, there are millions of young people who've been robbed of their future by their educational loans. Now, Mr. Buckley is a professor in the Scalia Law School and the author of American Secession, The Looming Threat of a National Breakup. His point, really, folks, is that we need, and this is from a conservative writer, he's certainly not espousing in any way socialism, but that in order to keep this country united, we need to take in the considerations and the concerns and the beliefs of everyone, and the liberals need do that as well. One would expect. It is 6:45. But we have a lot to talk about today. Let's see who's coming up. Vince Russo is coming up at 7:10. Janelle Albritton will be with us this morning. Steve Callis, Jake Schaefer will be along. Al Tarantino, Dr. Victor Sternberg, and a lot of reports coming in from Yonkers. We will talk with Hezi Aris. We're 15 minutes in, and of course, it's time for a second shot at the weather. If you're just getting up, you look out the window, we've already got some sun. It is a cloudless but cold place, 22 degrees. It feels colder, so don't hold me to that. It feels like 9 according to the report we have here. Sunny though all day, the temperature 33. Tonight, clear skies, the temperature will be 22. Now, Saturday, lots of sunshine and breezy, the temp warming up to 46 degrees. Sunday, sunny, the high 50, the overnight low will be 34 degrees. And the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a senior care campus of top assistance. Visit uhgc.com. And the top of the hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Management. I should say the bottom of the hour. Their partners, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne and Kahn, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and Dominic's Fine Cigars. We live in interesting times, to be sure. I think I've finally taken the cure, and I'll tell you what it's based on. And it's just a feeling this morning, but I'll share it. And that is that we have reached a point where the democracy within which we live, by the actions of not just the president and his partygoers, but the far left as well, where it now is the ends justify the means. And the rules we have are no longer, unless of course they suit our purposes, are no longer part of a republic constitutional democracy. Those days have sailed in practice. Our rules now are simply the game through which we look for loopholes to achieve our ends. And this is going to have consequences for one time, but here's the good for a while. Now, here's the good news, at least for my mental health. It should apply to you too as well. But this is a little selfish because, and it also hopefully will make me a little better at this job because I was broken in some ways over the fact that the Constitution was challenged each and every day in, day out. So much so. And the process that we have, that it became old hat. Now, the good news is it'll be old hat when some other president or some other group comes in. And the far left has shown no inclination to do anything any differently when they get there. I mean, they want no borders, or at least the extremists do. They want no borders. They want no bail. They want all debts forgiven. They want to hold people who are successful in contempt. And so here's the deal. I still long for the sacredness of our rules and laws rather than using them as a pretext to go where we want to go. But I'm giving up that ghost. Not the fight necessarily, but the ghost of thinking that what any president or any group of leftists do, or far rightists do, I've given up the ghosts that I'm going to let it bother me. I've given up the ghost that the center has held because it has not. Yesterday, and this is, and the problem has a lot more to do, again, with even not what actually happens, but our reaction to it, even what we just saw in the polls. And it's probably been going on longer than we thought. President Bill Clinton famously said it's the economy, stupid. Well, we just saw a poll where people are going to vote for Trump because of the economy. And who am I to tell them they shouldn't? Especially if we all give up the ghost and realize this process does not matter. It's just a pretext. It is a set of rules to be gotten around with no real sacred affirmation of them. Yesterday, or I guess it was last Thursday, the director of national intelligence went to the Congress, as is part of the job, and reported to them, as is part of the job, that the Russians are once again hacking the election. And it's just by way of an example, except I'm not going to be going to a hissy fit about it. He reports that this is happening and that the objective of it is to help Donald Trump get elected. Well, that is what's going on. That's a simple fact. Can't blame the president for it. That's what the Russians see is in their best interest. Now, the president, by all accounts, on all fronts, right, left, middle, was extremely upset. Now, it hasn't been proven, nor does it even need to be proved, that the president got rid of, because the guy was in an interim, he got rid of the boss of that organization. He wasn't the one that actually made the report to Congress. But worse still, he was upset that the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, which happens to be his old friend who brought the impeachment charges, he was upset that he was told, well, those are the rules, Mr. President. Now, I'm not even criticizing him anymore. I'm just putting it out there for your edification. There was a time not that long ago when we would be outraged. We're not. Because by the rules, or if you will, by the objectives of many, the president is doing his job. The president also is doing stuff that illegal that people don't like, but again, using his power to do so. Which is his attitude towards, you may not like the way he's going about it, but the way he's going about dealing with the immigration crisis. So on one hand, we have disrespect by him for our system. It's okay if he's upset, just shouldn't be doing certain things about it. But anyway, I digress. The point is that we had Bernie yesterday coming out, or 2 days ago, and this is the guy that leads in the polls, that it should be illegal to be a billionaire, that it should be illegal in essence to be successful. Sure, there are many oligarch types, if you will, and businesses, Walmart for one. But again, it is within the system that makes a lot of money off the backs of other people who in some instances need to go on food stamps even though they're employed. That's true. There are businesses and there will always be businesses, and that is something that our political system, whatever we wind up with, needs to work towards making perhaps a little fairer. You want to make that case and you're on the left, go ahead. Because a case can be made. And a case can be made about health care, and a case can be made about more affordable education. A case can be made. But these absolute one-sided, everything be free, everybody get a check for $1,000 a month, that's never going to fly in this country. At any rate, here's the point. Long-winded though it may be as we come up on 6:54. I've taken the cure. The system is no longer what we thought it was, and we have allowed it because of, rather, the ends justifying the means, as long as we get what we want. Ergo, though, these pendulums swing. And looking ahead to the future of the country, we have a different direction that we can go in. Because right now what we have is a fraud. We say we have representative democracy. We say we have, and representative democracy meaning, and I'm not trying to give you a condescending explanation of what a Republican form of government is, but essentially it places an enormous amount of trust in the people we vote to the Congress and the people we vote for Senate, and their role in this democracy, supposedly their co-equal role. And along with the executive branch, along with the justice system, the judges and the Supreme Court. Well, we now see that on both sides in the last several years, almost every vote is coming out to be party-based, regardless of what the issue underlying it was. We see on both sides an effort in electing a Supreme Court, if you will, or appointing a Supreme Court, where we actually, not unlike the Senate trial, we actually want to know the verdict before we present the case. The liberals trying to load the court with liberals, the conservatives trying to load. Now, this is nothing new, but we've reached the tipping point, conservatives trying to put only conservatives on the court. Will we know how they vote on Roe versus Wade before it even comes up? Was there anything, and again, I accept the system, dying though it is, what would it have taken for Republicans to vote for removal? Although I dare say it's just as well that he wasn't, because the people should decide. But one gets the feeling that since they didn't want to hear any testimony, that it wouldn't have mattered. Similarly, there are Democrats that would have voted to remove him, that would have voted to impeach him if everything that came out had been exculpatory towards the president. So, now this has to lean one way or another. Who's breaking the rules the most? In my humble view, of course, the president and his minions, because all of a sudden, Republican or Democrat, and it can't be so. It can't be so on either side that anyone, if it's a George Will, a well-respected Republican, he's now a never-Trumper, and that's how you deal with that. If it's a Republican head of the FBI, he's corrupt and has Democrats working for him. If it's a guy who did a good job but failed to draw conclusions because of timidity or God knows what, Robert Mueller, a lifelong Republican respected by everyone, he also is guilty of bringing about a witch hunt. Now, all I ever wanted out of this, less about the outcome, and that is not our political system, I'm afraid, was for people to say, no, Mueller's a good man, a little timid when it comes to the conclusion, well-intended. Similarly, everyone else who we make excuses for on both sides, who we say, well, that's just the way they are, or we accept what's going on because the president or because the people on the far left are doing what we want. Anyway, that's my take today. It is 6:58. I'm not going to rag about it because I think that battle is lost. I think we're headed to a different form of government. And if we're not, if we can't come to grips with the changes that need to be changed, if we can't come to grips with what needs to be done, maybe we become a constitutional, or rather a different system such as they have in the UK, a parliamentary democracy. Heaven forbid we have a direct democracy. We'll wind up just being split in two. The system, though, that we had to bring us together is lost. And you know who did it? Don't blame Donald Trump. Don't blame Barack Obama. Don't even blame Bernie Sanders or the Tea Party people. Blame us. We don't read enough. We don't care enough. Again, I'm putting it out there. How many people really know what this dying system we had, this Republican form of democracy, how many people even know what it means? I mean, from the day I took a job on the radio to do politics, I was always shocked at the number of people who would say, imagine all of our crooked councilmen who voted to do this or that. And we have to remind them that you elected them. That's the process. Or the very first complaint that turned my head about the two-way dine, why did the government make that happen? Well, we have a combination of free markets, and controls to keep the field as level as possible. That's what we have. And we don't even know it, didn't even know it. And so long as the president was doing what we agreed with, we didn't care. We didn't care that he mocked people. We didn't care that he attacked judges. We said they were no good. They were Democrats, whatever that means. They were no good. They were liars. And people that were previously his friends, all of a sudden, they were backstabbers. They were rats. Now, we're seeing this even in baseball today. I don't pretend to know the answer. Only our military has honor codes. But outside of the military, going all the way back to Watergate, maybe it started then, everyone called John Dean a rat. Although one of the nice things that came out of The Irishman was, at least Jimmy Hoffa said he's a smart rat. We now have a society where telling the truth makes you a rat. Think about that. We knew it existed in gangs. We knew it existed in omerta in the mob. We know it exists in the police department with their blue code. We know it exists in locker rooms in sports, and we're seeing it now. But we kind of wanted to think that in politics, it didn't matter because of higher values. Well, it is also true that generally speaking, to get rats to, if we use that term, to do the right thing, it was only under some sort of coercion, such as, well, you'll do more time in jail. I don't know the answer. This monologue is not about the answer, but there is one posit I'm putting out there. A Republican form of democracy exists no more, which is to say, now, it will finally break. It has to break. It doesn't work. It's still there. It just doesn't work. And when you keep doing something different, it's like driving 80 miles an hour on a 55-mile-an-hour road. If everybody's doing it, then what? Well, that's what we have. Everybody's driving 80 miles an hour on the 55-mile-an-hour Republican form of democracy that we have. I'll be right back. 914-222-3141, 914-222-3141, or you can also call us alternatively. We're giving out both numbers now, 914-999-4006, 914-999-4006. Take a breather. Alrighty, we get to our first phone call in just a moment, but we are going to share the weather with you again. Every 15 minutes is how we roll, at least during this part of the broadcast. Still 22, feels like 10, but we have lots of sunshine, clear skies, and will throughout the day. The wind out of the west-northwest, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tonight, clear skies. The temperature 22. The wind will be out of the west at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Saturday, lots more sunshine, but breezy, but getting up to the mid-40s, maybe even 50, and sunny Sunday. That's what I like. Sunny Sunday. The high will be 50 degrees. And the weather, of course, this morning is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit hgc.com. Aging Issues Management and their partners, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne Incon, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. Let's go to the phone. Sometimes we even get guests earlier these days. And welcome to the broadcast, our next caller. Good morning. You're on the air, and thank you for calling.
Good morning, Robert. It's Vince.
You're here early. So I have made my proclamation. I am cured. I do no longer hold out hope for our government as it was presently constituted, and ergo, I now can be a dispassionate observer. That not all is lost, but it is lost. And I one last thing about it, Vince. One of the problems that I have, and this is with my own self, is once one agrees that the rules no longer apply. In fact, there's a term in Latin for it in the law, force majeure. Then all you got to do is look to win. It's easier way to live.
Well, I don't believe that you're cured. I don't think you'll ever stop caring.
Well, it's not that I don't care. It's that I accept. It's a matter of acceptance. You know, I went through, what are the cycles? Kubler-Ross, denial, bargaining, Except no, but how many more then, Vince? Like yesterday, the president fired the guy that gave him bad news. It's like out of a bad novel. It makes 1984 look like a comedy strip, and nobody cares.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I don't get it.
And Bernie, and all of a sudden, Bernie says that if I become successful, I'm an outlaw. And what? Anyway.
Yeah.
What's
Bernie wants to make it illegal to be a billionaire.
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. As I said to you yesterday off air, I have this wicked idea. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Now, this is for my entertainment pleasure. I want Bernie to get, and see now, because why should I care? I don't care. So now what I want is Bernie to win the nomination. Nothing's going to get my vote. I want him and Trump to have a Queens, Brooklyn, old-fashioned New York, your mama wears combat boots argument with intractable, one-sided insults and positions that are irreconcilable, so we can see just how far this country's gone, and it'll be fun for me.
Yeah, but you know what's going to happen? If Bernie gets the nomination, Trump, every other word out of his mouth is going to be socialist.
Yeah, and every other word of the other guy's mouth is going to be fascist or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
I cut something out for you, and I was hoping you'd call today.
Okay.
Good news in Virginia.
Uh-oh. Whenever you come on with that approach.
Virginia's House of Delegates passed a bill. Can you believe it? That would repeal the state's ban on sex between unmarried people. Do you believe we're still against the law down there in Hickland? Thereby providing more credibility to the state's tourism slogan, Virginia is for lovers. I mean, imagine in this day and age, I mean, one of my great pickup lines when I was single is, I want to do things to you that are illegal in several southern states. I'm glad to say that they're not.
Now, does that apply to all people or to just straight people?
Probably just straight and white people. Although Virginia's, I'm being mean-spirited here. No, Virginia's not. Actually, Virginia's fairly, and when I say progressive, I don't mean in the political sense. I mean, the Virginians are finally walking on their hind feet, and they're not dragging their knuckles. You still got to go to some other states for that, but...
Thomas Jefferson was from Virginia.
I'm being snarky. Some of our greatest, George Washington was from Virginia. Thomas Jefferson, I think Madison was from. They have more presidents from Virginia than anywhere else. They're right there in the middle.
Virginia and Ohio.
Ohio, is that where it is?
Yeah.
I love these little. Oh, listen to this. The president got upset over something, and this is funny. After a friend, this has nothing to do with picking on him. It's just one of those things. It's like Obama had giant ears. After a photograph, the president got upset after a photograph of a windblown Trump showed the graphic contrast. What happened is his hair blew straight back, and it showed where his makeup stops. And
with the orange makeup stuff.
Yeah, and he's as white as a ghost. And between the pale skin of his hairline and the thick orange bronze makeup, Trump tweeted, and I quote, "More fake news." Now listen to this to show you how crazy you think I gave up. Some Democrats are. Now I don't want this to happen. 64% of New Hampshire Democrats said in a poll they would prefer a giant meteor strike the earth, extinguishing all human life rather than see Trump be reelected.
That's a phrase of a friend of mine. Whenever he reads something like really stupid, like this thing about letting people out without bail, he'll say, he goes, the giant media's got to come down and take care of this.
Oh, is that where that comes from? You know what? Another guy, this other guy killed someone yesterday. He was out on bail, too. Anthony, I think, sent me a text. That's the other side of the fence. It's gotten nuts. But you see, so now... should we revert to this? This is a question for you and just about everyone else calls today. As long as we're getting what we want, why care? Why care?
I think that seems to be the prevailing sentiment,
if I get a tax thing that all of a sudden money rolls in the windows of this radio station, thank you, Donald Trump. I'm with you, baby. Just make it happen.
Yeah.
Or if not, for example, I mean, there are things that, he's done things in immigration people don't like, but he's at least doing stuff. So if you feel that that's the right, or at least the thing that you want done, why shouldn't you vote for him? But, that's where we're at. And that's just, I'll move on from that. I got another funny for you, but sort of funny. An Ohio minister says he plans to sue the NFL. Are you with this?
I am.
Over the racy Super Bowl halftime show. Minister Dave Demonmeyer claims Shakira and Jennifer Lopez's soft porn performance, as he called it, may prevent him from getting into the kingdom of heaven. Do you want to answer for this, Mr. Religious Fellow? But here's the other thing he said. Now, this is great. He said, furthermore, when you do go to a porn website, you're not looking for 50-year-old women. You can't.
Oh my God! No, I think God will allow him to.
Are you sure?
Get a pass
Now the liberals have this is a good one, just to show you that I'm not a hard-hearted man and it's not all dollars and cents. Vegan activists, I can't make this up. They're staging sit-ins in Starbucks coffee shops to protest the higher price of drinks made with non-dairy milk.
Oh, you got to pay more for that, huh?
Well, yeah, because, that's like, it's pretty common now. About 3 weeks ago or 3 years ago, I remember someone coming to me, look, I bought almond milk, and I took them to the doctor. It's not milk then, it's almond juice.
Well, I got news for people who buy anything at Starbucks. You're a moron if you pay $5 for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, but you know what's good about it? I think they spiked that stuff.
With what?
I don't know. What do you mean spike it? I mean, there's like an extra dose of caffeine. I mean,
well, that could be.
I do some energy drinks in the morning. I'll do a lot less now. People say it's no good for me.
But, I wouldn't be surprised because that's what people get addicted to that stuff.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
and so I wouldn't be surprised, but I think it's hilarious. I don't drink coffee, so it doesn't matter to me.
Really, never? Oh, yes, you're one of those little prissy things that has tea every day. A little
Brilliant.
Tea. Brilliant, little bit of tea. Do you get, what are they, Earl Grey? Have you ever gone in, I like tea.
There was a
myself.
friend of yours who loved that I drank tea.
Yeah, but boy. Brilliant. No, but you ever go it's like if I have a cold especially or I don't feel well, it was a bad show and I know I stunk and I'm out at lunch and I'm cold, I'll order tea and they bring you out this little thing in a little box. It's got like 17 different choices. And I say to them, well, all I want is tea. Well, pick a tea. I don't have an idea. Can't even pronounce half of these things. And they're all different flavors. It's like, as I mentioned the other day, it's like, you ever go into a woman's bathroom?
Yeah,
They got more flavors of shampoo, body oils, body creams, skincare than tea, than flavors of tea. I counted once. I did apricot, vanilla, cocoa butter, turnip extract. So what kind of tea do you get when you hop in?
I just usually get a whatever brand decaf tea they have, like Lipton or.
But what if they? Yeah, but what if they roll? No, you have to be sophisticated. What if they open up the? And forget. Don't say Twinings because it's Twinnings, by the way. Where's it Twinings? They open
Brilliant.
up that little box. He hates Brits. Well, you open up the box, right? And
they open up the box. I mean, if they don't have just plain decaf tea the way I like it, there's a special brand called Prince of Wales that I like. And Earl Grey. Earl Grey is decent. I'm not crazy about it, but I could drink that.
Folks, please don't turn off your radios. People are getting coffee. Remember when we were on Wall Street, I used to go crazy. And it was probably a little misogynistic of me, but in that sense, that you'd be online and the market's going to open in 10 minutes and there's somebody online saying, oh, I'll have a Mercato with just a touch of a spray of milk, vanilla extract, my grandmother's illegal grape juice. And I have to go to work.
Well, I was alluding the other day when you and I were chatting off air that I wanted to talk about a situation we've had here in the borough.
Oh, yes, in the borough.
Now,
is that like a jackass, or is it like a borough as in a location?
Borough in like, yeehaw.
Oh, go ahead. No, speak to us.
Well, I don't know how you guys deal with it up there, but, here, our borough is...
No, but deal with what?
well, I'm
Where's the
telling you,
lead, pal?
I'm telling you, pal. With people involved with trees. And
Let's
you know,
branch out into a new discussion. Go ahead.
we're in the borough is it's suburban, but it's not like Long Island suburban, you know, where houses are close together. It's, I don't know, you know, a lot of people like to say semi-rural, where, you know, there's a lot of open space, a lot of trees, and a lot of houses.
Do you have intimate relations with your own relatives? Is it that suburban?
No,
Oh,
with the
okay.
trees.
Okay, trees. Do the trees have intimate relations with other trees? Go ahead.
So, you know, we've got this hardcore group of people. There's three sections of our town. One is a gated community, one is a lake community, and one is where the rest of the peasants like me live.
Good.
And the lake community, there's this hardcore group of people who don't want any tree cut down for any reason at any time. And they are just like off the rails.
Yeah.
You know, we had a hearing last Tuesday that lasted from 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock about the lake community has a homeowners association, and the homeowners association owns some little pieces of property, and they wanted to refurbish one of these properties, and in doing so, they applied for a permit to cut down some trees. Now, we don't allow people just to indiscriminately cut down trees. You know, believe me, we're for having nice trees and such. So you got to get a permit, and you know, there's a limitation on how much you can cut, and the reasons, and all of this other kind of stuff. So the homeowners association obtained a permit. I won't go into all the gory details.
Yeah, we don't need that. But tell us their mood.
And oh my God, these people came out like in droves about the trees and what you're doing and this and that.
Well, now, one of the things you should point out, you yourself are on the Republican side of the aisle, and you live in and function as a fairly highly conservative community. So you've had to deal now with some of your folks on the left, I take it. Or are they just tree freaks?
No, I think you're right. I think that politically they're on the left as well. But that's irrelevant. And you know, they even hired a lawyer and all of this, and they droned on and on for 2 hours, and then our forester gave his opinion as to why the trees, you know, should be cut down, but why the association.
Why didn't you conservative Republicans do what you always do? Why didn't you beat them with sticks or lock them up?
Trust me, I wish I could have.
Well, listen, let me just give you a juxtaposition and then continue. This is not the worst. You've never dealt with animal rights people, have you?
Oh, I have. Oh, yeah.
They're the worst.
Yeah.
And when I say the word, I've said this story on and off the air, and it'll add some context to you. Now, as you know, in the almost 20 years I'm doing this, I've been up to my ankles in floodwater that kept going and going and rising and rising. I've covered murders. I've covered fires. I've covered tenant right things. But nothing ever scared me the way the animal rights people did. They wanted an entire and the most rural and beautiful park we have here in New Rochelle totally set aside for off-leash walking. And when I went and they have the most beautiful dog park you ever saw that this city built for them. These people were adamantine and irreconcilable to the grave injustice being done to their four-legged. They scared me, these folks. They scared me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, these people are like that too, you know, because so during the hearing, then the other side, the homeowners association president presented their reasons why they wanted to cut these trees down. They're refurbishing this little park that looks like a dump. It really needs to be done.
Well, that's nice.
So they went back and forth and all of this for hours and hours and hours, and then it finally came to the council, and the mayor asked each of the council members' opinion about it, and who was saying, oh, it's good to have this park and blah blah blah, and when it came to me, I said, we wasted 4 or 5 hours here because the fundamental question is not about the park, whether the park should be refurbished or not, because it's not borough property. It's private property. The question is, did the applicant comply with the ordinance for the tree? If the answer to that is yes, they get the tree permit.
How did this work out for you?
And the issue is not between these tree people and the borough. It's between the tree people and their homeowners association. So we took a vote, and we voted to uphold the issuance of the permit, that it was valid, whether you like it or not, whether you think it. The question when it comes to law is, did it comply with the current law? Well, it should be changed. Well, maybe it should be changed.
Okay, to answer your question, do we have this up here? Of course we do. And we have it in different ways. For example, we had a number of people who did some beautiful artwork on the sides of buildings that was not properly, what's the right word, applied for or commissioned. And so their thing was, but they're beautiful. It's wonderful to the people that did it. They're wonderful, fine young people. They broke the law. And no, there's no, when people think something's right to do, they sometimes forget we have laws. I mean, that's the theme of today's show.
Yeah, and so then last night at our council meeting, we had a few of these people come. And of course, at all council meetings, properly so, there's an opportunity for the public to address the mayor and council. And these people just droned on and on and on. And I just said to the mayor...
You just got to finally end the meeting.
Well, I said to the mayor, are we going to relitigate this issue? I said, we're not going to go over this again. It is done. It has been resolved, and that's the end of it. And these people are going, when we change the ordinance, blah, blah, blah. Well, I got news for you, lady. You don't get to
Calm
change
down,
anything.
This show goes all over the world, and they're listening. They'll vote you out. Actually, and I don't mean this in any unfair way to you, but if that's how they feel, that's what they should do. Again, we have a Republican form of government. If they want the ordinance changed, they should go visit their councilman or woman, whomever that may be,
That's right.
And then what they should do is get them to change the rules.
Right. But they think that by saying we have to change the ordinance, they think, prima facie that it's going to be changed in their favor.
Yeah, by fiat. Apropos, I ran into a friend of mine last night, a guy I really respect. In fact, I hope he's listening, because what he doesn't really know is that whenever I talk about the base of conservatives in this country, the base of who really work hard, he always comes to mind. This guy owns his own construction firm. And this guy owns his own construction company. He built it from the bottom up. He worked his butt off. Every week he's got to make payroll. Every quarter he's got to make payroll. He's got to build houses. He's got to buy supplies. And he's very conservative, a very religious, very moral and decent guy. I played hockey with him. And he was listening to us yesterday, and when he saw me, he says, "You're just a liberal," but he says it lightheartedly. And I said, "No, you got to listen to the whole thing." But the reason why that's important and what we don't do enough, in fact, another person whom I greatly respect just walked in the studio, who often has those kinds of opinions. And I'm afraid, and I always listen to this guy, because he is at the heart of what makes middle America work. Which is, even though I'm not a great believer, he's a very religious guy, but he works his butt off. And whenever we talk about giving things away, whenever we talk about tax breaks for this and that, or overtaxing someone, I always think of this guy, because he plays by the rules, he works his butt off, and the system seems, particularly from people on the left, to militate against them. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And if we don't listen to people, even if we don't agree on all sides, we're out of our minds.
Well, according to Bernie, if this guy's highly successful, he's some kind of criminal, and we should take his money away and give it to people who don't want to work.
Well, that's my see. But the point is, he's not just. I wouldn't say he's highly successful. He makes a living. He makes a nice middle class living. He puts his kids through school. One of them's in the military, and I always he doesn't know it, but I always use him. He's like my poster child for what would he say. And that's why when he saw me yesterday, and he says, "Hey, liberal, I was listening to you and your friend from New Jersey yesterday." And we were, and at that time, we were probably ragging on the president or something that he did. We hadn't yet got to throwing the liberals under the bus. But apropos, I want you to say hello to someone, and then we're going to switch to him. He came in person, and he's the guy, by the way, he sent me, he keeps me honest by sending me a lot of stuff. And I have to turn this around. Folks, we don't want you to be frightened, but I'm going to let them see you. One of for years now, a friend of the program, and a guy who keeps me honest, my own police force. Please say hello to Anthony. There he is. Oh, no, I got to make sure people see him. And he's off his neck harness, Vince. Can you see him?
Oh, good. I hope he's feeling better.
Yeah, are you feeling better?
No, it's status quo. The harness is in the car.
Now, who do you have in the harness in the car?
The cuffs, they go with the harness. It came as a set, But and it was good because you don't have to adjust the light because you and I are about
the same height. See what I live with, Vince?
Hey, I went to the doctor the other day, and now I'm 5'5" and a quarter or something.
Yeah, we shrink.
Yeah.
Well, not all parts of me shrink, and I wish to get that out and established on the air. My ear. Do you know your ears get bigger and your nose keeps growing?
Your nose grows every morning when you sign on.
Go ahead, Vince. I'm sorry. I'm being abused.
No, that's okay.
I'm trying to come to grips with the fact that I have my center-left views, etc. Why most of my friends are to the right of Attila the Hun, and that includes you. Do you know, Anthony, what you guys have in common? When I first started on the radio, he was the you. He was really into the more. Remember back in the day, Ruby Ridge and all of that. In fact, he has his own compound with helicopters, guns, the whole line.
He's got the root cellar in the back. That
Oh,
goes
you're not kidding.
underground,
He
yeah.
actually, to describe him, he is extremely. And it's not fair to say pro-gun. That's always a bad label. Vin is a very responsible gun owner.
You can say pro-gun. I don't mind.
See, that's the problem.
See, I don't
I'm
want to
not
use
ashamed.
labels.
No, but
Go
listen.
ahead.
Listen
Fix
to
the
me.
mic. Raise it up.
Listen to me. It's just the fact that you had to rethink what you said.
Yes.
That's what this has come to, and yes, I'm going to blame the left for that.
Yeah, you should.
Okay, because
Political correctness?
not because I'm just throwing darts at the left, but because people don't understand. If I criticize someone, and what I say is a fact, it's not a criticism. It's a fact.
It's just a description.
It's just the way it is.
Even if you add it with "I'll stab you in the eye with a knife."
Well, no, that's a different story. Stiletto. I'm Sicilian.
It's right, Anthony.
Oh, Marrone, you're
It's his-
Sicilian?
Yes,
See, I can
Sicilian
get-
through and through, both sides.
See, I can get away with this, A, because it's true, B, because I'm talking to the principal, and C, because I'm not on terrestrial. But Vince's wife, Anthony, is Sicilian and Polish. No, and it's the best ethnic joke I will ever tell, and I have to be careful on the air. You know what we tell her? She stabs herself in the back.
She cut him up, put him in some food. They'll never find him.
She grew up in one tough neighborhood down in Gallowland, and not the winemaker. Is Mrs. Russo up this morning?
No, she's still sleeping.
No, sure.
Speaking of which, is Dr. Sternberg coming on later today?
Yes, Dr. Sternberger will be with us.
I got to ask him why I don't sleep. Do you sleep, Anthony?
Oh, poor Anthony.
2.5 hours last night.
Yeah, I tell you, I don't. I have back problems, not as extensive as you seem to have. But I tell you what, I fall asleep an hour later, 2 hours later, I wake up. Then I fall back to sleep. Maybe an hour and a half later, I wake up. I mean, it's crazy.
I spend as much time, if not more time, sleeping in the recliner than I do in the bed.
That's because
I do too.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
Vince?
Yeah.
What am I dealing with? Curmudgeons here?
No, you deal with people with back problems.
Is that a mirror?
Oh, Oh, God.
Hey, whenever my wife calls me a curmudgeon, I always say Winston Churchill was the most famous curmudgeon, so that's fine.
Do you remember the terrible thing you did? He did one evil thing to his wife. This goes back many years ago, and we were dabbling with golf. Well, he was. I was always terrible. And he had a golf club in his hand. And she says, "What's that?" And then he banged it on her toe for reasons that could go on. Did you ever come to grips with why you did that?
No, but the even better one like that was when we lived in Brooklyn. We had we had a shower curtain, and we didn't have the shower doors. We just had a curtain, and the curtain doesn't stay flush against the tub. And my wife was taking a shower, and I went into the bathroom to get something or whatever. I don't know what it was, and we had this pole that we had because there was a skylight, and you could open the skylight with it. And for some reason or other, I looked down, and I saw where the shower curtain was not meeting the tub. I could see her toe. So I took the pole.
No, you did not.
And not hard. I mean, I didn't do it hard. I just tapped her toe. Well, she didn't know I was in there. She screamed like you wouldn't believe.
I told you. I love stuff like that. You know what I did about a few months ago? I was going to one of my grandson's hockey games. And his best friend on the team's mom. Sometimes I sit with her. We're like the parents of And she, go ahead. All right. Anthony's got to take care of some business. So anyway, V, she brings this big, because it's freezing in these rinks, this big black, huge blanket. And this poor woman made the mistake. Aiden is her son's name. Great hockey player, by the way. She made the mistake of going to get something to eat and not taking the blanket.
So what'd you do to it?
I hid under it.
Oh, my God.
There's this gap in the stands. I got to
Yeah.
get to this call in a minute. The way there's the gap.
Yeah.
So I hid there, and I had the blanket on me. And when she came out to sit down again, I jumped up. The women almost had two babies right there in front of me. Screamed, the whole rink thought that somebody was being massacred. Listen, I got to get to some other calls and stuff. But the point, and Anthony had to go, folks. But the point you raise is it's fascinating. It's like the story I always tell about the Thruway Diner up here. We love that diner. Why doesn't the city do anything? And we have a free market. We have this, or had this wonderful balance, which is, political stasis, which I think we're losing. But anyway, go ahead.
Just to close, I wore my 1980 USA hockey jersey to the council meeting last night in recognition of the 40th anniversary of the win.
Did anyone call you a jerk?
No. Actually, people liked it. I gave just a little brief history of how good the Team Russia was and how momentous it was to beat them. And afterwards, a woman that I know said to me, "Oh my God, I got to tell my husband that you did that. He was at that game."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Well, that's right. Well, that's right. Well, you're a member of a very conservative government in a God-fearing place in New Jersey.
USA.
Oh, fine. Goodbye.
All right. See you Monday.
All right. We got other calls to get in. Anthony had to leave. He's been so busy. He's taking care of his dad and stuff. So, all righty. It is 7:34. Coming up is going to be Janelle Albritton, but we will open the phones for more calls. If you're trying to get in, I know someone was just trying to get in, and I obviously had to move on. But we are here now. Janelle Albritton's coming up next. She is the managing editor and publisher of the Westchester County Post.com. After that, her very own Steve Callis, who is the sports editor there and one of our go-to people. Jake is going to hold me accountable. Although I was looking at the sports stuff earlier, and I think I had another 500 night. My beloved Blue Jackets, second favorite team these days. They just can't get enough goals. They lost again. I won that game. I hated rooting against the Blue Jackets, but at least I won the bet. Here comes Jake now coming in, so we're going to talk with him in a little bit. This is Radio Westchester. The phone number, actually, I think Janelle's trying to get in, and so we'll leave it open for her. But we'll be back to more calls. But first, we do need to share the weather with you again. Trying to lighten it up again. Anthony, thank you for stopping by. Vince, thank you. Again, folks, all this stuff going on, and I do monologues that are usually pretty serious, but it is Friday, and we're trying to lighten it up a bit to the extent that we can. Let's have a little bit of fun, even as our government changes right before our eyes. Please, my friend. All righty. And that was me tasking Jake. He always picks up coffee, and I say, bring me another one. I need to be amped up, and I need to be amped up to bring you the weather, which is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com to the weather. Right here. Here. Lighten it up. It's Friday. It's sunny. It's freaking cold. It's 22. It feels like 10. The temperature is going to get to 33 degrees, though. 1 over, for those of you who are the uninitiated, 1 over. Freezing tonight. Clear skies. Temperature 22. Again, it'll feel like 10. But tomorrow we get a break. It gets up to 46. Still more sunshine. More sunshine on Sunday. Sunny. The high will be 50 degrees. And as we head to the bottom of the hour and we wait for Janelle Albritton to call us, and Janelle, we're going to ask you to call 914. What did I have here? I'm forgetting all my phone numbers. 999-4006. 999-4006. By the way, that's why I found out if the people who are guests also listen. And that's the weather on this fine Friday morning. Again, 736, the law firm Rapania & Kahn, Aging Issues Management, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and Dominic's Fine Cigars. They all are with us. It's interesting. I was talking earlier about this need to listen to one another, and it really has value to try and see the world the way someone else sees it, and it's very difficult to do. And again, it's one of the reasons I keep using that word again. You know, you monitor your own language when you do this for a living. One of the reason d'etre of this radio station was so that we would listen to all points. And as you probably figured out, and it tends to be the case, you get three types. So people call just with questions and information. Others call because they don't agree with you and they want to straighten you out or bring you over to that side. And others call up because your beliefs confirm theirs. But it is absolutely essential, at least to us here. The reason I mention that if you're not a caller, a regular caller, as we extend and add to the format, we welcome all points of view. We may debate it, but if you listen enough, you know that we, myself especially, willing to get my butt kicked when something doesn't make sense or when you disagree with it, because I think that that's the best way for us to learn to live together and to keep this democracy. I mean, I just had two people here at the same time, Anthony and Vince on the phone, two people who I've probably on some issues disagreed with more politically over the years than not. And it has affected. I think through Vince, I've learned to be supportive of the Second Amendment, but not let go of my views that we need more gun control. Anthony has disabused me of more naive attitudes I had towards government than perhaps any other caller or friend of the program than anybody I know yet. We disagree on the other 70% of things. And I'd like to think it works both ways. Let's see who's on the line. My guess is it is my next guest, the very fine managing editor and publisher of the Westchester County Post. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Marrone.
Good. I like when you talk in a town. Janelle Albritton, I don't think I've already told people who you are, Janelle, but I'm going to remind them. Janelle Albritton's the managing editor and publisher of the Westchester County Post.com. It only took me 6 months to finally get that right without hesitating.
Good job.
Albritton, is that British? Are you a member of are you descendants of the great Brits, as in Albritton?
Yes. That's my ancestry.
Top of the morning.
A little bit of British. A little bit of Cherokee.
A little bit of who? You're an Indian?
Cherokee Nation. I don't claim it, often, but it's in the mix.
Did you say
a little bit.
Cherokee?
Yes.
Wow. Did you ever scalp anybody? That's terrible, that thing, Joe. I don't know why I did that.
Oh, my goodness. You and I have to talk.
At a distance. I
Yes,
thought that was
you
funny.
like your head of hair. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll talk
Hi,
about it later.
Janelle. You do so many different things. I got your email the other day. Please do not leave. One of the ways in radio we've always paid people back, because none of the people coming on, the guests, get paid. Obviously, is if you got something to plug. It's time honored, and I always get engaged with you, so to speak, and forget to remind you to plug what you're doing, which is important. You're going to get something out of this too, and not just help entertain and inform. Now, you, of course, have some gigs this weekend, so we're going to do it straight, because this woman, folks, is a videographer. She helps people in our jail system through some of the work she does as a master in public health. She does all kinds of things with wellness. She manages 2 newspapers, and she's also a really, really accomplished professional, lovely jazz singer. Where are you singing this weekend? Get it out there.
Oh, why, thank you. So this Saturday, I'll be at Martini Grill in Woodridge, New Jersey.
Woodbridge or Woodridge? She's from California. She doesn't know these things.
Wood-Ridge.
Oh, Wood-Ridge.
That's how it's technically spelled. At Martini Grill, right there by the Meadowlands.
Okay.
A lot of fun.
By the Meadowlands.
7 to 11 p.m.
Oh,
on
by
Saturday.
the way, folks, that's the Marshlands, the Meadowlands. Make sure you bring an inner tube in case it sinks while you're there. But their hearts will sink when they listen to you, Janelle.
Well, I hope their hearts, take wings and fly. If they don't want to go to New Jersey, I'll be on the 28th. I'll be at Toscana.
Say that again.
Tuckahoe.
Tuckahoe. Oh, right. Tuckahoe is actually so much closer than I thought. And okay, that's Toscana.
It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like right there in Eastchester on Main Street. Right between Bronxville and Eastchester. Right there on Main Street. Very easy to find. And I'll be there from 6 to 9 on Friday the 28th.
Now, when you do 6 to 9, how many sets is that?
That's three
45-minute sets.
60-minute sets. Yeah.
All right,
and that's going to be a trio with my dear friend Rob Thomas on cello, who's a professor of strings at Berklee College of Music, and Dmitry Kolesnik on double bass. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's going to be classic jazz with those 2 string things. Now, how often do you change your sets? How often do you change what you're going to sing, or do you pretty much do the same thing every night? Does it matter on the audience? Does it matter on your mood? Does it matter if a handsome man like myself is in the audience?
Well, if you come, it changes everything, Bob.
Oh. No, you started to say where it was, and I caught you up. I spoke too quickly because I'm always interested in process.
Toscana on Main Street in Tuckahoe. For more information, you can go to westchestercountypost.com and click on Arts and Entertainment, and it will be right there.
Okay, I want to move on to one of your other efforts. You are doing a lot of work lately and a lot of research, if we may say, and writing about wellness, in the sense that there's perhaps more to mind, body than just simple meditation, of course, but placebo effect and so forth. What are you learning? And there's this individual whose name I just misplaced that you've been working with, this doctor. Tell us about your latest there.
Well, if you're referring to Joe Dispenza.
Yeah, I almost said DiBrienza, but yeah, Joe Dispenza. Sounds like a dispenser. You put quarters in and he gives you information? Or is
he's Italian like you, so you can insult your own if you like.
Thank you. I always do. Anyway, go ahead. You got a problem with that? This broad, Jake, this broad here from California is giving me a hard time. Anyway, I switched into Brooklyn for you. Go ahead.
So his website is drjoedispenza.com, drjoedispenza.com. In 1986, he was clipped by a 55-mile-per-hour vehicle.
He was clipped?
While he was on a bicycle on a triathlon in Palm Springs area. Mm-hmm. And he got clipped, and he went flying, and he broke 6 of his vertebrae.
Ouch.
And he was advised by 4 great specialists in Southern California to have the Harrington rod put in, which is like this metal rod that they screw into your vertebrae.
Yeah, I've seen that. Now, did they connect the vertebrae, or do they drive it right through? I have a rod in my leg, 13 inches of it. Yep.
They what they do with the Harrington rod, they screw it into the bone of the vertebrae. They clip off the little wings.
Got it.
And they screw the rod in to take the pressure off, because he had bone chips pressing on his spinal cord,
Oh, my
and they
God.
told him he would never walk again. And so he decided, you know what? I'm gonna just give me some time. I'm not doing that. And against the 4 specialist opinions, he repaired his spine using his mind, reconstructing his spine in his brain, in meditation sessions.
That's what you're saying is pretty radical stuff, and bear this in mind as we go forward. There are going to be skeptics, so try and explain
sure, but
this. Go ahead.
He did it.
No, go ahead.
He did it.
Mm-hmm.
He basically prayed to whatever entities out there. He said, if you help me walk again, and if you help me do this, I will help the world. And that's really what he's been doing. He traveled. He was studying around the world people who claimed to have spontaneous remissions. He wrote his first book called You Are the Placebo. And he started doing workshops. And today he is a great scientist and mystic. And he says that...
Hold it up right there. You just said 2 things in the same sentence that are paradoxical: a scientist and a mystic. How long is that bridge?
He says that science is the contemporary language of mysticism, and he is working on cracking the code on how to help people use their body-mind to heal their physical bodies. And he's been posting a ton of testimonials from folks who have experienced full remission from things like everything from terminal cancer to MS, diabetes, Parkinson's.
Okay. 747, folks, here on Radio Westchester. We're talking with Janelle Alberton, managing editor, publisher of the Westchester County Post.com and other things. Now, he must have, in the interest of keeping this balance, he must have his detractors, but he probably must also have people who verify his work or peer reviews. How is that balance working for him, and how is he viewed in the community of healers?
Well, he has a team of technicians and brain scientists who are working with him on his workshops to hook people up to EEG monitors, and also what I have been a promotant of for many months now, heartmath.com, heartmath.org.
Go ahead.
And I own the software on my laptop, and I do it myself. It measures your pulse, and it gives you a kind of a biofeedback type reading of your heart coherence, which I won't get into today, but heartmath.com, heartmath.org will give folks more information.
Heart Math, did you say, or Heart Med? Say that again more slowly.
It's Heart, H-E-A-R-T, Math, M-A-T-H.
Oh, Heart Math, M-A-T-H. Okay, Heart Math.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
H-E-A-R-T, M-A-T-H.com or .org. And that will give you a ton of resources. If you have any other questions, you can email me at hello@westchestercountypost.com.
Oh, I like that. Hello@Westchester. See, now here's the problem. See, I always go here. There's something wrong with me. Now, see, if Jake, and you've met Jake, you've been in here. Now, if Jake
lovely.
is...
Hi, Jake. How are you?
Jake, Janelle says hi. Now, if Jake is putting the electrodes on me to measure my heartbeat or whatever, my heartbeat slows down unless my flight or fight response comes on. If you put them on me, then my heart speeds up. Okay, because you look a lot better than him. Yeah, but that's like there's something wrong with me, Janelle. I had a dear friend who went in for total heart bypass, like a quadruple, whatever it was, and he was wired up to all the machines.
Yep.
So the next day, since I could read his monitor, I brought in a Playboy magazine. I wanted to see if his heart rate went up when I turned to the centerfold. Is that bad?
And what happened?
It went up. It went
Sure.
up. He also
Sure.
told.
That because that measures what we call a state of arousal.
Yes, we like states of arousal. I believe it should be the 51st state. I don't know. I'm trying to
Sure.
lighten it up today. It's Friday. I'm so tired of the politics. It's so wonderful to have you here. You should be in the, next time you come in the studio, will you sing? Do you need music?
love
Do you need a
to.
band? You should. I think
I'd
people
love to.
get a chance to see how well you sing. I have been there. She's wonderful. In fact, by the way, you hear that beep. You know what that beeping is, don't you? It's your
Probably my wonderful colleague Steve Callis, sports editor, and we're doing a series of videos called "Houston, We Have a Problem."
Oh, I love it. That's crazy. Jake is very anxious to hear from him, too, about that after I get embarrassed by my picks. All right, Janelle, one more time. Where are you performing, and where can we get more information about it's a mental block, Brienza.
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Joe Dispenza. Okay. And go ahead.
And I'm just really enjoying all his videos. He's got tons of stuff on YouTube, but his website is drjoedispenza.com. And you can find resources on my website, westchestercountypost.com, under sports and wellness. Go in there and just click on the wellness links. Speaking of wellness is my radio show at wvox.com every Tuesday from 10 to 11.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the 28th, Friday of next week, I'll be from 6 to 9 p.m. I'll be at Toscana there in Tuckahoe on Main Street.
Sing to me. Thank you so very much, Danelle Albritton. We will be moving next to your colleague. It is 7:51. Jake, take the seat of honor. We'll be talking with the man from the Westchester County Post in just a minute. We do have to give another weather report. That is he. I got to lower that, but for now, it overpowers my headphones, and I do need that. All righty, we are entering, coming up on the 8 o'clock hour. I've actually got 8 minutes to do that, 8 or 9 minutes to get there. But we're coming up on the 8 o'clock hour of the Mornings with Bob Marrone radio program. We've got a panel of experts, it seems, visiting us today. And the weather's brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. It's 22, feels like 10. Boy, you should see how frightening it is to look up for me right now. Sunny, 33 today, but it's, again, feeling like 10 now. Tonight, more clear skies, temperature getting down to 22. It'll feel like 10 again. And tomorrow, we get a break. Lots of sunshine and breezy. The temperature will be 46 degrees. The wind will be out of the west, 5 to 15 miles an hour. And folks, it's that time. We do it every day. Of course, that's our bed for when we're talking sports and when we're talking about me making a fool of myself with my hockey picks. Steve Callis joins us from the Westchester County Post. And by the way, his boss, the managing editor and publisher of the Westchester County Post, gave us a great lead, if you're listening, Steve, before we turn on your mic, or on your pod in this case, we call it. And that is that you now have a series of videos and columns or pieces in the Westchester County Post called Houston, We Have a Problem. Good morning, Steve Callis.
Good morning, Bob. Great to be with you as always.
What a great handle. Jake, good morning, sir. Jake Schaefer.
Good morning, Steve.
Oops, I put the wrong button on. I got all you guys. Hey, Anthony came back to visit us. Let's get to the heart, Steve. And I know Jake is waiting with bated breath. And plus, you're going to hear some. I've been making hockey prognostications. I'm winning, but not as much as I thought. Anyway, tell us about this series of columns. Houston, we have a problem. And I know that Jake is going to want to engage you.
Well, we shot part one after the A.J. Hinch interview, which I viewed to be his job interview for his next job the day after the World Series when he's eligible to be hired. And that's all there was at the beginning. And then, all the Astros went to training camp, and the owner made a total fool of himself by saying, yeah, we don't really think that, getting the signs really impacted the game. And then 2 minutes later, a reporter said, "You really don't think it impacted the game?" And he said, "I didn't say that." I mean, it's all on videotape, of course. So we've shot 2 videos, part 1 and part 2. I think they're both going to be up today. And of course, it was Janelle who came up with Houston. We have a problem. I wish.
Oh, don't give her any credit. Don't. Brown knows the boss.
No.
Come on.
We were sitting around.
Oh, Janelle gave us the idea, Bob.
No, she picked that name, and I don't know why it didn't come to me. Anything that goes wrong in Houston, what do they say? Houston, we have a problem.
I know. I love it.
Headlines.
I saw the movie.
Okay.
It's a great catch. Great
No,
hit.
so I think once the players, they were all given, it sounds to me like a script. We're really, 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 really sorry. We made a mistake, which is a joke. A mistake is I was supposed to make a left turn, I made a right. This was an ongoing fraud for at least a full season, including the playoffs, into the next year, according to the commissioner's report. And then, the players started going back and forth, and Carlos Correa, I thought, made a real fool of himself. So we have a couple of videos that will be up today, part 1 and part 2. Part 3 is now going to be, and you guys probably heard this this week, Giancarlo Stanton. Oh, if I knew the signs in 2017 when I hit 59 homers, I would have hit 80, maybe more. Now, that's a little much. Vlad Guerrero Jr., oh, if I knew the signs, I would have hit 500. Mike Trout was a little cooler and said, if I had the signs all season, I would have a lot of fun. And so you're getting player pushback. Even Nick Markakis of the Braves the other day, I don't know if you guys heard this, he said every one of the Astros deserves a beating. And
yeah, I did see that.
Where I'm from, like you, Bob, if you're from where you're from, you're sitting there going, you know what? Not a bad idea.
No.
These guys didn't lose a nickel, didn't get suspended, nothing happened. And Nick Markakis says that, and everybody goes nuts. But what are you going to do? There's some rumors that some pitchers might throw at them. Why not?
Well, now if
in
I
the ribs, not the head.
If I understood it right, and I know Jake has a lot of opinions like this, and I want to throw actually flip the double play to him. But if I understand it right, now some of the Houston players are pushing back, saying, "Yeah, we can't wait to play you, Jake."
Well, Houston has been very defiant all along. Las Vegas has set the odds at they will be hit 83.5 times this year. I think I would go
83.5. How could you hit me half the time?
That's the over/under. I think I would go with the under because the commissioner is going to really crack down when he starts to see a lot of Houston players, a lot of head hunting going on. So
yeah, but Jake, if I could ask you this, Jake, if you throw in an Astro player and hit him, and this commissioner, Harvard law grad, by the way, who really made a fool of himself, called the World Series championship trophy a piece of metal and then walked that back. But if
he's
he
the Robert Mueller of
baseball.
baseball.
Let's just say he suspends a pitcher, because they give him more games. They give him 5 games, which is really only a start for a starting pitcher. They give him 5 games and fine him $20,000. Isn't that going to be mocked worldwide?
It's
because
the bed
it would
he
be
made.
the first punishment with the Houston Astros cheating scandal, and that just strikes me as absurd.
right, it's the bed he made.
Yes.
Just a complete mess, and I don't know how he digs himself out of it. Does he go back and suspend players? Does he buy Altuve his tattoo removal? I think he can't do that because they already have immunity. They probably physically signed agreements, actually, from a legal perspective. No, I've said all along, and I think the only thing they can do, and can still do, although he said he wouldn't, is vacate the World Series. Because not to put the Dodgers up, that's ridiculous. Just have no World Series winner for 2017. And that, to me, at least, would be a deterrent not to do it again. Forward-looking now, to me, if you cheat and you're willing to take the slings and arrows and nothing more, all you're hearing is words. You guys are cheaters. You guys are liars. They lost no money. They didn't get suspended. Nothing happened. It seems to me you can go right on now, cheat, win the World Series again, and the template's set. What's going to happen with the Red Sox? How much of a mess would it be if they had won last year?
Well, that's a good question because clearly they cheated into 2018. That's the commissioner's report. And they kind of adopted what the players said, that they didn't cheat in 2019 because it wasn't effective, which is laugh out loud funny. Of course it's effective. So
let me just ask both of you a question. I've assembled like a king in his court. I have my 2 experts. I have a fan here, a baseball fan as well, who's joined us. Let me ask you this. I can't get my arms around, and Jake, Steve, I can't get my arms around why the furor. to this extent? Because don't these other teams cheat as much as we think? Or was this so
I just think it's how the Astros have dealt with it. They've been very defiant. They haven't been likable at all. Bregman came off as a jerk. Altuve, Carrera, no apologies. No, they haven't shown any contrition. So they did it to themselves, and maybe they like that. Maybe they like being the wrestling bad guy.
What say you, Stephen?
Well, my recollection is that the Yankees lost all 4 games at home in the 2017 pennant championship series. And they seem very angry. The notion, even players are saying now, the notion that these guys weren't suspended, and then, of course, Manfred would say, well, if we didn't give them immunity, we wouldn't know anything about anything. And that's wonderful, except you let the criminals get away and you banged the manager and the general manager, who you actually said didn't really know what was going on. Whether that's true or not is irrelevant. But if you look at them, they got it because they're management and they have control. Major League Baseball has more control over management than players because the players have the strongest union in the history of the world. But other players, especially those who think they were cheated out of a World Series or a chance of the World Series, like the Yankees, like Clay Bellinger on the
team
Dodgers.
that got screwed was the Tampa Bay Rays.
How's that?
They went down to the 5th game.
Oh, right. Well, you know the guy
Houston.
I feel the worst for, and then I want to ask Anthony, a friend of the program who popped in, who doesn't do this every day like we do, although he contributes every day. A guy like Yu Darvish, a really fine pitcher, he couldn't get out of the first inning. And I remember at the time, even kidded, it's like they knew what I was throwing. They hit everything I threw.
Yep.
He must be just beside himself over this. Anthony, what do you say? We haven't asked you your opinion.
They need to vacate the championship.
So you and Jake.
Absolutely. There is no other recourse at this point based on what they've already done, which was next to nothing outside of just give immunity to players.
Hey, Jake?
I don't think it matters. I don't think any Houston fan is, if they take down a banner, is it going to, they're going to remember winning the World Series. Is it really going to matter that much to a Houston fan? Okay, take a banner down.
No, but Jake, I think it's going to matter to everybody else.
Yes,
that's
moving
what
forward,
I think, and that's the bigger deterrent factor forward-looking. That's what I think.
Well, there's still something missing here, and I got to go back to it. I expected the ball players to kind of go hush-hush the way they did over PEDs, and the surprising evolution to me is this is different. This is different, and I can't get my hands on why. What is it that we don't know?
PEDs, everybody was doing. There was an honor among thieves. This was one team that was doing it to a level that no other team was doing.
We're going to hear about Boston in a couple days.
No, but I said, but it wasn't across the league on that par. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe.
On that level.
All right, Steve, did you get a chance? And Jake wants to take you up on this. The XFL. Did you get a chance to look at those games? And Jake, take over.
No, Steve.
No, let Jake take over because I really
interested in the XFL.
I just haven't looked that much. Again, if we're going to talk about AAA baseball, we can do that. If you want to have a minor league show, we can do that. But I think, and maybe Jake can tell me about the rules, but I think it's just AAA football.
The gauntlet's thrown down, you AAA dog.
No, I didn't think I would.
Jake, am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I didn't think I would.
The quality.
I didn't think I would be as interested in the XFL as I am. I just think the ideas that they've come up with, I would love to talk to that rules committee. It's really a really different kind of football. It's enjoyable. It's guys that have played in the NFL. You're right. It's a lot like minor league football, but with a new twist to it. Some really great ideas that will be stolen. I love how they manage the clock. I love how they do the kickoffs. I love the idea of the extra points. I just think it's a very entertaining, obviously I wouldn't watch it over an NFL game, but in the dregs of the sporting world that we're in right now, it's something fun to do on the weekends.
So it's rule-based. It's rule-based entertainment that you like in February because there's no baseball?
That's a good description.
Well, you boys all need a dose of hockey. Yes, Anthony. Say that again?
It's better than Golden Girls reruns.
Oh, geez. That's a...
Speak for yourself.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right, Steve, please don't go anywhere. We want to share this with you, and then we'll make sure you plug what you're doing before you go. But it is time, Steve. We've added something since we no longer have Jake's picks of the week. We have Bob's hockey picks just about every day.
I've been listening.
And this week's Bob picks are brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrones, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. And now I have an audience to ridicule me. We shut off the music. Where's the music button? All right. How did I do, Jake?
Congratulations, Boss Bob. Picked up one game on Nick the Intern. You guys only differed on one pick last night. You picked the Golden Knights. Nick the Intern went with Tampa. You went 5-2 on the evening.
Victory is mine. Victory is mine.
Nick the Intern went 4-3, bringing the collective records up to 9-4 for Nick the Intern, 8-5 for Boss Bob. Congratulations.
Well, I hate to
game
brag.
behind.
Well, look at that. I need to. Wait a minute. I need to get my little sound thing here. Actually, I was disappointed in a couple of the games that didn't go. The Canadians beat the Capitals. This is like the Christians beating the Lions. This was, and the Maple Leafs whooped up. The Maple Leafs pitched a shutout. They give up more than a girl walking on Broadway. I mean, they give it up. But hey, all right.
Well, Bob, I thought we were going to talk about the new number 1 Ranger goalie. I don't know if you heard David Quinn say this the other day.
Oh yeah, I did. We'll get to that next, but first I need to take my bow.
Yep.
No, don't be sorry. We got time. And Jake is. So Jake, are we ready to take me to task for any games tonight?
Well, let's see how good you are with this. What I see the current odds for the Stanley Cup. Who's atop? Who's the number 1?
Oh, I bet you it's
at
probably
5-1. Who's 5-1?
5-1 probably is Washington.
The Lightning are 5-1.
I was going to say the Lightning's next.
Next is
well,
the
hold
Bruins.
on. What is that? Oh, is your phone? All right. Now Anthony says it's his phone. It's a drug dealer. All right, go ahead.
Next is the Bruins at 7-1. Capitals 15-2.
Wow. Well, the Bruins can't. They look tough. Yeah, go ahead.
And then the Blues are 17-2. So if you had a long shot pick, what's your long shot pick?
Of those 4?
To win, of any team, to win the Stanley Cup. If you really want to make some money.
Oh, God. Long shot pick. All right.
And
now
a team that'll make the playoffs.
We've already mentioned Boston, Tampa Bay. Yeah, you know what?
Why don't you get into a team, maybe
Pittsburgh.
20-1?
What's Pittsburgh's odds?
10-1.
Okay. Tell you what. Oh, you
Steve,
want me to go longer?
how about you, Steve?
If you want a real long shot, I'll take Toronto now because I thought they had a chance at the beginning of the year. Since they've gotten rid of their coach, they're much better. I think they have a chance to be a live long shot.
16-1.
Racetrack guy, Bob.
No.
Long shot, Toronto.
No, but that
Leafs.
is a long shot, and I'll tell you why. You got to keep. You know this, Stephen. You're a sports guy, a long time, broadcasting, writing. You got to play defense.
I hear you, but they're getting better. They're improving. Their record's getting better. Their defense is a little better, and there's still a ways to go to the playoffs. They got another 25 games before.
Well, allow me to say this. I think Toronto's probably sorry that Bruce Boudreau is now available.
Yeah.
Bruce Boudreau is almost the
right.
perfect coach for that team because his reputation. He's coached now 35 years and literally never had a losing season. Literally, never. And he's got a gift that's twofold. He's always coached good teams. He can coach stars, but also he used to be just offensive. He learned how to tighten up D, and that team has both. They have offensive stars, and they have a weak defense. In fact, now there's the team that ought to go out and get Lundqvist next year. But
well, Steve, if you're in New Jersey, you can get them at 16-1. Do you know what that means, Bob?
Okay. Yeah.
Of course, he knows what that means.
No. Go ahead, laugh, Anthony. All right, let me see if I got this. I'm going to give you my long shot. Actually, I might have thought about. Okay.
Do you want the odds here?
No. Here's my long. Yeah, thank you. He said, well, I can't. Where is? Oh yeah, these. I don't know how to read these gambling tables. Okay, odds to win.
From your neighborhood, you don't know how to read the gambling?
Hockey, that's true. I used to. All I know is I remember the gamblers coming out of the social club, and they'd always get. One guy would come out with his arms like spread, and he'd go, "I sent out the Bombers today, 100-1 on the Jets." All right, here we go. not the Oilers, and it's connected to at least the Star, not the Stars. Boy, they give the Golden Knights. They're not what they were, though. All right. I'm going to give you a big. You all ready for this? The Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah.
And what is the? Let me see. What are the? Oh no, that's 15-1. That's not big enough. You want a bigger one, right?
Well, they need a goalie, that's for sure.
Okay, they need a goalie. Yeah, that's it. I can't. Do you know the team that disappoints is Nashville? They were in the mix for a long time, but now they just they've lost their mojo. All right, I'm going to go with the Avalanche. That's my outside pick. Okay, and I think a team that's going to make the playoffs and going to win Coach of the Year for their team is the Blue Jackets. It's just ridiculous what he's squeezing out of nothing. I can't even get over it. That team is just, Anyway, all righty. Now, before we move on, there are a number of other things. You wanted to ask about the number one goalie, Shesterkin. And for those of you who are hockey fans, this guy, now you can't totally, folks, go by his record totally because he was playing in a very unbalanced league, the Continental Hockey League. Has it's not quite the second best league. It's probably the American League here in the States because it's unbalanced, because it's run by oligarchs. The rich teams win like 50 games and lose 8. And poor teams, don't do so well.
So you're going to blame it on Trump?
No, not yes. No, or Bloomberg, either one. And so Shesterkin's played for those teams, but he's had records that are ridiculous. Like he wins like 25 games and loses 3. He's got a goals against average of 1.5. His save percentage is like .930. But by every scout on the planet, they think he's the best young goalie on the planet. The real problem here is the same problem the Giants had. They have an icon who is the face of the franchise who cannot bring them into the next decade, if you will. And so why he hasn't allowed himself to go to another team such as the Maple Leafs, where he could have a great end of his career, I don't know. What say you, Stephen?
Well, he still might. The trade deadline is Monday. There's certainly been rumblings, but I think you're right. He's got a no trade. He's a legend in New York. He may be. I think he already is, Bob, the greatest goalie never to win a Stanley Cup.
Absolutely.
And right now, it's going that way if he stays with the Rangers. But Shesterkin, I understand his record, that you just talked about. But in the NHL already, he's 7-1
yep.
with a 2.28 goals against. That's incredible. His save percentage, as you said, in the NHL is 93.9%.
Yeah.
And he's had 3 games with 40 or more saves. This guy's athletic.
He's the real deal. Mm-hmm.
And I think, and of course, I love Lundqvist, too.
Me too.
I thought when he played against the Kings in the finals, I thought he played really well, and it didn't matter, frankly. And, he just never got there. It's not unlike anybody you can name from the Jets, although I don't think they had a great quarterback like Lundqvist is a great goalie in the last 50 years. But he's Eli Manning, but without the championships, and that's a problem. But I wouldn't rule out, I was watching On the Fly on the NHL Network. I don't know if you watch that. But
yeah, I do.
Apparently they wouldn't rule out that it's a possibility at least, because what's he going to do? And now it's going to get awkward. And your coach already said you're not the number one goalie anymore, and you're the king. They're calling Shesterkin the prince. Do you know that?
Yes, I do. Well, you know what the difference is, too? And I love these Eli Manning, as you all know. But the difference is Manning was pretty much done, not totally done. But this guy still has some mojo left. He just is not the future of the team and can't be a number one anymore, at least for 70 games. This guy, whom I do admire, I would love to see him win with another team. The same way, and I forget his name because I'm old, but the guy that went from the Bruins in his 19th season and won a cup with Colorado.
Ray Bork.
Ray Bork, thank you. I would love to see him do that. Otherwise, it's going to be a waste of a year. And you can't buy out an icon. You just can't. He's got to accept. In fact, I'm sure that he must look out from his net and say, my God, I'm living in an alternate universe. It reminds me of, I had left Merrill, but went back for some business all the way back in 2001 or 2. And it was like I was a ghost after my own death. You just don't belong anymore. And I think that's the case now with Henrik Lundqvist. I think he needs to go. And I know
you're right. Sad but true.
All righty, before we put a wrap on this, we still have another few minutes. Jake, you put a book up on the table, Bonsai Babe Ruth. What's that all about? Tell us about that.
My book of the week, my book club, I guess.
Can you angle the mic up? You're a tall guy. It's on midget height for me and Anthony.
Bonsai Babe Ruth, baseball, espionage, and assassination during the 1934 tour of Japan. Very interesting book. They got a spy on the American baseball team that went to Japan. But it's
is that Mo Berg, Jake?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's The Catcher Was a Spy, the movie. But before that, he even went with Ruth, and apparently, you probably know more about this than I if you read the book. But apparently, he actually took a ton of photographs and brought them back to the U.S. government.
Which he wasn't allowed to do at the time, but he was sneaky and got away with it.
No kidding.
And also, I think it was kind of weird because if you looked at the roster, apparently it was a bunch of superstars and the backup catcher.
Exactly.
Mo Berg,
it was the lineup was Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Gehringer, Jimmy Fox, and Mo Berg.
I love that stuff. I love books like that. I also have a bunch of books regarding the barnstorming years. The best one ever is Satchel Paige's book, Maybe I'll Pitch Forever. What a great, great book that is. Do you know, guys, he made a lot of money because he was so famous. He would actually go to ballparks.
Ruth got $25K for this tour.
And he would actually, this is a true story now, I'm not making this up. They had this thing where Satchel Paige would come out and say, get rid of the outfielders.
Yep.
I will strike out the sides. And he did. He had his B-ball, his hesitation pitch. And do you remember the subtitle of his book, any of the three of you? Don't look back. Something may be gaining on you. Yeah. It's great, yeah. All right, before we go, and we're going to be...
I will be at the... I'm going to check out the Westchester Sports Memorabilia Show. This Westchester...
Oh, no kidding.
The county center.
Hey, do
me
a favor.
Some interesting guests.
Go, who do they got?
Headlined by... I'd love to see if you can guess how much it costs to go get an autograph from these guys.
Oh, you're going to give us a full report. We'll give you more time Monday.
The headliner will be Phil Simms. $89 for a signed football, $99 for a signed jersey or a helmet.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Bavaro. Bobby Valentine will be there.
Bobby Valentine.
Former heavyweight champion Tim Witherspoon.
Witherspoon? That should be a British guy. Tim Witherspoon.
Only $20 for his autograph, plus $10 if you want an inscription. Yvonne Barrett, do you know who that is?
No.
Star of Slapshot.
Oh, the goalie. Yes.
Guess how much his autograph's running for?
Probably about $50.
25.
Okay.
10 if you want an inscription. The great hitter Pedro Guerrero will be there.
Okay.
Only $10 for his autograph. Ray Knight will be there, and this is shocking to me. His autograph is $35 more than Guerrero.
Well, for Met fans, that's a big deal.
New York,
yeah, and the 86 World Series.
Lenny Dykstra will be there.
Oh, Jesus.
Jose Canseco will be there.
Wow.
What is Lenny Dykstra charging?
29 plus 10 for an inscription.
Idiot. Great ball player, though. All right, Jake. So, Jake, you're going to go to that show. Do me a favor. See if they got any hockey stuff going on there. I got a lot of hockey memorabilia that I want to sell. Anthony, I want to thank you for stopping in. Always a pleasure. Now, before you go, sir, and that, of course, we're talking to Steve Callis. What are you doing this weekend? You're on radio, TV, climbing Mount Everest. What?
Yeah, well, I'm taking the weekend off on radio this week. I got a lot of other stuff going on. But we've shot now 4 videos in the last week, which will all be put up either today or tomorrow, not just the 2 Astro ones. And we didn't do any NBA, but I did one on the farce of the slam dunk contest, not because I really cared. They tried to fix the finish, and they got their points wrong. I don't know if you heard about that.
No, I did not.
But that led me into a whole thing on whether the rim should be higher in the NBA today. Of course, that'll never happen, and you may know this, Bob. So I did a video that includes, on March 7th, 1954, the NBA actually had a game with 12-foot rims that counted.
No kidding.
It was a one-day experiment, and then the next day, the losing team, just by scheduling, the losing team, the Milwaukee Hawks, coached by Red Holtzman, player-coach, the next day they played the only doubleheader in the history of the NBA where they played in both games against the Baltimore Bullets. So I have a video that kind of veers off, into basketball history that someone should write a book. It's the most interesting 48 hours in the history of NBA. One day, 12-foot rims. It counts. George Mikan played in the game. You know George Mikan, Hall of Famer.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Shot 2 for 14. And the next day there was an actual doubleheader. I'm sure you know, Bob, the old Garden. They used to have NBA doubleheaders.
Oh, yeah,
they
sure.
Played one game,
Loved it.
somebody else played in the other. But on March 8th, 1954, 2 teams played 2 games, the only time it's ever happened before or since.
Hey, do you remember the days of real doubleheaders in baseball not that long ago?
Oh, well, of course. That's the only time we went, right?
Yeah.
2 games for the price of 1.
Yankee afternoon, you go out to the Bronx, remember we didn't have a lot of money when we were kids. You bring your own sandwiches. Your mom would.
Absolutely. Every Sunday, pretty much. Almost every Sunday.
Those were great days. Hey, listen, Stephen, as always, thank you very much, and you have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Steve Callis, everybody. Unless something breaks, then we'll get you on earlier than that. That is Steve Callis. Al Tarantino's money up next, but we want to say goodbye to Jake. Jake, one more time, you're going to go to the memorabilia show. You think you're going to spend any money there?
Probably. What are you in the market for? I'll keep my eyes open.
Actually, I don't.
It won't be on the floor.
No.
And I'm glad Steve said that, Bob. You'll know this number of times and left Jake and I after he realizes the age discrepancy.
Yeah. I hate both of you. And I'm so glad you stopped by.
Have
Anthony
a great
Galetta,
weekend.
friend of the program. And it's a lot when we do our sports stuff. I'm so glad he stopped in. And Jake, so you're going to go to this. Well, if you buy anything, what do you think you're going to buy?
I like the baseball card stuff.
You do like the yeah. You know, were you? You know, you're young. I should have probably kept Steve on for this, but I got to get to my next guest. Did you ever flip cards?
Did not.
You were aware of it, right? That
Like to keep them as pristine as possible.
Oh, no. You'd actually have a shopping bag with thousands of cards, hundreds, and you'd flip, and we have all these different games. You know, now that we have so much video, and we also have a green screen now, we bought a new one, a new tight green screen, that we did a test the other day. We had a guy in a boat. And it looked like he was really in the boat right there. It's sitting in the seat. In fact, not the opposite seat over there where Anthony was. And he was actually in a boat. It was pretty cool. Oh, look, I'm putting my script up there. All righty, folks, we have to take a break. We'll be back with Al Tarantino. Jake, thank you very much. Of course, Jake's segment brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente. Jake Schaefer, everyone. More and more does he get involved. We're going to move to Al Tarantino in a moment, but first, another look at the weather. It's 22 degrees. Feels like 10, or maybe the sun will warm it up a little bit. They tell us it's going to get up to 33 today. Tonight, clear skies, temperature 22. Tomorrow, lots of sunshine and breezy, 46 degrees. They call right on time. We love it when a plan comes together. 46 degrees. And that's tomorrow. The wind will be out of the west, 5 to 50 miles an hour. Tomorrow, that's tomorrow, Sunday, sunny, the high, 50. And we like that. And, of course, the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And we're happy to go to our next guest. He's had a busy week, and we've been wanting to get him on, and we're glad we caught up with him. He is three things, actually. He's a city councilman here from District 2. Successful businessman, but more importantly, a successful elected and popular elected official who is a Republican. And it is our privilege in fact, he's a rare breed. They are now testing his DNA to see how he survived. Please welcome City Councilman Al Tarantino. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
Pretty good. Do you realize that they're going to want to have to put you in protective custody soon? Look at this. You put you in a museum. Here is a Republican. Yeah. It'll be like
we can charge admission and balance the budget with it.
You kidding? They'll put you in the Modern Museum down in Philadelphia, put you in a jar after you die. This was a successful Republican politician in Westchester County. How are you, sir?
Good. Thank you.
It's good to hear your voice. Hey, I was just talking with Jake before we segued to you. And now you're a little younger than me, I suspect. But did you flip cards as a kid? Baseball cards?
No. You know what? I don't even remember. I may have, but I don't remember. That's a long time ago.
Fine. You know, Jake, it's not going well.
All I know is
it's not going well, Jake.
Yeah. But I wish I had those cards that I had then.
Oh man, remember guys used to carry, guys that were really good at it would have a shopping bag with thousands of cards in there, and my favorite was parachutes, where you'd parachute it down on the wall, and anyway. I digress. I know we should be talking politics and the city. We live in interesting times. I was kidding the other day, and I made light of it because I have accepted the fact that for this city to grow, and it's growing nicely here in the downtown, we have to put up with the inconveniences of digs. Well, one day I counted 5 street digs in like one 4-square block area where I couldn't get around the block to get to Harrison Street. But that is a sign of progress, yes?
Yeah, it's a sign of progress, and there's going to be some growing pains because of it, and unfortunately they're getting worse. They're going to be digging even more. So the hope is that they dig fast and efficiently and get this thing done. So I know they're almost finished with the sewer line down on the end of toward East Main Street.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Echo Bay.
So, yeah,
they're it seems like they're almost finished with that. So, that's a good thing. But now, we've got to look forward to the water company coming in and putting a new water main. And there's another one going down Webster Avenue that's going to start soon. So, and then there's a bridge on North Avenue that has to be replaced. So there's a lot of things going on at one time. And, we're going to have to try to maneuver through them, but it's not going to be pleasant.
Am I going to want to poke my eyes out when they finally do the bridge over North Avenue, the I-95 bridge?
Well, it's funny. They're supposed to start it. I heard rumors that it might be in the spring, but I've been hearing this bridge is being supposed to be replaced for the last 10, 12 years. Mm-hmm. And every time they're ready to do it, something comes up, either in the state budget or federal budgets, and it doesn't get done. So, while they talk about it getting done soon, let's wait and see. When I see a shovel in the ground, then I'll believe it. But, the hope is that when they do the bridge, they don't do it at the same time that they're doing a lot of this other construction, because that'll be a disaster for downtown. It'll just cut the downtown off from the entire other section of the city. So that would not be a good thing.
Now, can I ask you an ignorant question? And as you know, I'm good at that. Why does the bridge need to be replaced? It seems fine to me. Or is it going to be higher?
Well, no, those bridges, they have them on a rotation, and it's aged out, and I guess they need to replace it. That bridge was built probably, God, I don't even know how long ago, but they age out and they go on a replacement list. And
okay.
What's interesting, if it's in such dire straits and needs to be replaced, why does it take 10, 12 years from the time you say you're going to replace it to the time you actually do it? It's kind of interesting.
Well,
but,
yeah,
it's all about money. That's the problem.
So it's all about the Benjamins.
It's not safety, it's money.
When I was running the Chamber of Commerce, that bridge gave me a nervous breakdown, because you remember when we added the Mighty Mouse. It's one of the symbols of New Rochelle's history. We were petrified that it wasn't going to fit under the bridge. We did but because it's a balloon, you do all these tests, but then when it's finally fully inflated on the day of the day, I remember.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. The day taking what was it, Mighty Mouse?
Yeah, Mighty. If
you
remember,
pulling the Mighty Mouse, we were pulling it under the bridge.
Yeah.
Well, that's a different bridge, but that's the.
It is a different bridge. Oh God, it's
that's a different. Yeah, no, the bridge they're talking about is the one that goes over the throughway.
Oh, okay,
bridge.
The one by the train station.
Yes, that's the bridge. That's the one we're concerned. No, the other one is another one they're not replacing. But I remember that trying to get Mighty Mouse under the bridge. He just made it.
I would have been a laughing. If you remember, I posted after we got the parade going, and again, Jennifer Lancer was working with me at the time when I said I wanted to do balloons, and Chuck Stroman and I had been talking about it for a while. Jennifer found a place that actually had this iconic balloon, but I stood by that, if you remember, overpass with beads of sweat saying this entire parade is going to come to a screeching halt if he won't fit. Remember we flattened
especially when you stood under the bridge and your head was touching the bridge.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I was able to walk under the float without hitting my
ducking?
Head. Weisenheimer. Al Tarantino, our guest. I was talking with a guy from one of our reporters from White Plains yesterday, and he was talking about sewers and how the largest cities, White Plains, New Rochelle, Yonkers, etc. What do you know about plans to I know we floated a bond a few years ago. Are our sewers covered in that? Are we going to be able to take care of our sewer issue?
Well, we are doing what we are being required to do. There should be input from the county on a county level.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know much about, but I can tell you that one of the problems you have with the entire sewer system in Westchester County is that there are sewer districts that pay for the sewers, but they're not paid by the entire county. And what happens is people from anywhere in the county are using those sewer systems at one time or another. And the main hubs, meaning White Plains, Yonkers, New Rochelle, Mount Vernon, are paying an exorbitant amount of money. The taxpayers are paying a lot of money toward that sewer upgrades. And, I always felt that it should have been more evenly distributed throughout the county. But because of the politics, that has never happened. And there's talk that supposedly there is discussion about trying to do something about that. So, we'll have to wait and see what happens on the county level.
My guest, Al Tarantino, City Council, I almost said president. It almost seems like you are the city councilman from District 2 here in New Rochelle. You've been in office now, 13, 14 years? You've been out of
12
a while.
12 years.
I remember when you ran. Although I also came on the job when you lost a few years before by a handful of votes, literally?
6 votes. Yeah.
6 votes.
Yeah.
Did you? Hey,
thanks.
Let me ask
Thanks for reminding me.
Well, no, it was not that I was thinking about the short jokes or anything, but that's got to be frustrating, though, Councilman, to think that. Did you ever think maybe I should have knocked on 5 more doors, or not told that guy that he was ugly,
there was a lot,
or not made short jokes?
That was a redistricting year, and there was some manipulation of. In fact, there was a lawsuit filed, and it was a long, long story. But there was a lot of manipulation of districts from the time of the primary to the actual election. The lines were moved again, and took a bunch of people out. So it was an interesting time. But that happens. That happens when there's redistricting.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. When redistricting happens, there's a lot of shenanigans go on with it. But that's in the past. But it did make me more determined to run the following cycle.
And you did.
Fortunately for me, I won.
And you did, and it reminds me of how long I've been at this in this town, Councilman. And
we thought and it's funny we said you wouldn't last a year.
I remember sitting with you. You weren't a councilman yet, and I was sitting at the table, I guess, with the bid. In the middle of my first week, they sent me out, meet all these people, and I was terrible. And as you recall, they even warned me, 2 more weeks, you're out of here. And folks, it has to do with going from long form radio to short form. Believe me when I tell you, it's a lot more difficult than it seems. And I was ready. I figured they were going to shoot me, and you and a bunch of the other people. I said, I don't know if I'm going to make it through a week. And instead of encouraging me, we said, no, we don't think you're going to make it either.
There was people picking what day and what hour. But,
nobody at the
think of it this way: nobody won.
But nobody at the table was a veteran of working the suicide hotline. Let me tell you, folks, it was. Well, listen, if you jump, go head first, so we don't have to pay to send you to the hospital. What do you want to shout out about? I'm always asking you guys questions and talking about development, but what's on your mind these days, Al Tarantino?
Well, my concern obviously is the development downtown and, how it's impacting everyday life right now, and more importantly, how it's impacting businesses down there. We're losing businesses for multiple reasons. One is obviously that buildings are coming down and businesses are moving out. The other problem is about business retention. We're running into the problem that the businesses that are closing are not relocating in New Rochelle, and part of the problem is we're right now we don't have a lot of spaces for them to move into, because most of the landlords won't give long-term leases because they're anticipating the sale of their buildings. So, we're running into those problems. We've had discussions about it. They're working on some sort of solution to that, and we'll have to wait and see. But that's a big concern. And the other concern is that with the road work that's going on, people are looking at it and saying, "Why should I come into downtown? I'll get stuck in traffic for hour or so. I'll go somewhere else." So we're running into that problem too. We're seeing less and less traffic in the downtown. So those are the issues that we're concerned about, and we have to work through. But I don't know if we're going to come out with a solution that's going to make everybody happy. But we're working on it.
Well, as always, Al Tarantino, it is always a pleasure. We never ask you to plug your business and you don't come forward with it, but you have a wonderful business here in New Rochelle. Give it a plug, for God's sakes.
Well, look, we've been there over 90 years,
And you started it when you were 10.
Yeah, no, not quite, but I've been there a long time. But over 90 years in there.
He never promotes it. I'm always trying to, you guys come on, you bust a butt. You got to, and you're a businessman too. You should. It's Townless Jewelers on Main Street, off Division. Thank you so very, very off Center rather. Thank you so very, very much, Al Tarantino.
Thank you,
everyone. Now I do believe, and I just want to be sure he's on the line because this other line we've been having trouble with. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Bob.
You are there. Excellent, Doctor. We're going to ask you to hold just a moment while we do a quick reset. And coming up next, Dr. Victor Sternberg, longtime radio host of Politics and Your Health. He blesses us each Friday for 30 minutes here, and we're lucky to have him. His concerns are, of course, how politics affects your health, the cost of health care. He cares about maintenance. He cares about prevention. And how the politics of this great nation affects your health. And as we get into the bottom of the hour, we're supported by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, plug-in virtual reality, and, of course, Dominic's Fine Cigars. And by the way, at 9 o'clock, we'll be joined by Hezi Aris. There are a number of stories coming out of Yonkers, as you know, the landlord issue. We have still other police issues going on. So we'll be talking with Hezi then. But please now join me in welcoming Dr. Victor Sternberg. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Bob.
It's always a pleasure. Doc, I had two guys in here this morning, and they begged me to ask you a question. One on the phone, one in person. They're both in there. Well, one is already 70 and decrepit. I hope he's listening. And the other is about 66, although he has a bad back and some issues. And he's the guy he's talked to often on the air about opioids needed for his back. But neither of them at this age now sleep through the night. What is it about getting older and not getting enough sleep or being not able to?
That's an interesting question, Bob, because I found the same issue in my own life. It seems that there's something good, and nobody's really pinpointed it, how it works in our brain chemistry. Most people like myself, and I'm sure your listeners, I have no trouble falling asleep. I can fall asleep, sitting watching TV. However, there seems to be a certain number of hours in which we go into this deep REM sleep. Mm-hmm. And as you get older, that hours get shorter. And then you go into a lighter phase of sleep. And for whatever reason, that lighter phase of sleep leads to wakefulness. Mm-hmm. And you then find yourself, thoughts begin to kick in. And it is definitely a process that has to do with our aging brain. And it doesn't mean we're losing our brain. It just means that the amount of deep sleep we get shortens, and the amount of lighter sleep we get as we get older increases. And during those lighter moments, we get breakthrough. And it is a problem that I've dealt with. I've tried every non-prescription medication, from Benadryl to Advil PM. And, I occasionally take something called Lunesta, which is a non-addicting pill to just so you wake up, when you start to begin wakefulness and you're up a little bit, you can just do what you got to do in the bathroom, go back, and it brings you back into a deeper sleep. And I'm just going to share with my friends, I would probably recommend they take a Benadryl before they go to bed, one Benadryl, see if that works for them. Take Advil PM, 2 Advil PMs, and then if they need to, get a prescription, because it's a problem that there's no cure for. It's a matter of managing the unfortunate part of getting older.
Well, you know what's interesting, Doctor? I have an interesting complex of issues because I have sleep apnea and I have a CPAP machine, which sometimes, when I'm really tired and relaxed, it works great. But other times it's just an inconvenience. I don't feel like I'm breathing clearly through it. But anyway, I digress. I have noticed that if I have exercised but haven't overdone it, it's an interesting balance. I sleep really sound and don't wake up until the morning.
One of the issues I've noticed in my own self is that if I fall asleep out of exhaustion and have not exercised, but it's just worked a hard day, I will fall immediately to sleep. But my peaceful mind, I've never discharged all of that angst that went on during the day.
Yes.
And during the lighter phase of sleep, that stuff boils up. Whereas if I've reached the point where I'm really relaxed and I have no real unresolved issues, I've gotten energy out through some exercise or whatever, I don't seem to have that angst break through. So I would say some moderate exercise after work would be a good idea. Take a nice long walk.
Yeah.
Don't kill yourself. But I think it does have an effect. And I've had some people tell me, interesting enough, that they've used warm milk before they go to bed. And for whatever reason, that with the warming of the milk releases a hormone which seems to produce sleep. So you may want to try that, some of the people.
Kind of like when we were a baby. We're talking with Dr. Victor Sternberg here on Radio Westchester. Doctor, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the coronavirus. Has it gotten, in terms of expectations, not necessarily in and of itself, has it gotten out of hand?
Well, what's happened is it's left its epicenter in China, which could have some ramifications. Because remember, whether it's we don't really know what's happening in China. It is a closed society. I have a patient of mine. I spent about a half an hour with Wednesday. He's from China, and he translated some of the tweets coming out of from the Chinese people, who for one of the first times in their recent history are attacking their government, because they gave their government ultimate power over their lives and expect to be protected.
Mm-hmm.
And the government failed to do that. And he's concerned. He says, just be careful. He's a Chinese national scientist. He says, do not trust what you hear from them, because they maintain control by controlling information. So I don't know what's happening in China, but more onerously, we do know that North Korea and Japan, North Korea had several hundred cases now. What do you do with those people? Because now we've gotten people who are exposed, who haven't developed symptoms, and they're entering other Asian countries in large numbers. So I don't, Bob, everyone has an opinion about this. We've talked about this, Bob. Everyone has opinions, but we don't have a lot of facts. So this may be a worldwide pandemic, or it may burn itself out. What is disturbing is it's up to about 3% of the people who have gotten it have died. At least the ones that are the active cases. And I think 2 or 3%. And that's very serious, because the flu only kills about 0.1%. So it's a serious problem, Bob. And how it plays out, is of concern to me, and it should be of everybody. And just remember, folks, this is not as virulent as the flu was in 1917 and 18, which 80 million people died. And we can't fight that any better today than we could then, because unfortunately, we don't really have good tools against viral diseases.
Doctor, one of the things that's kind of frightening for those of we lay people is we always have this idea, well, doctors treat them and they go on. We're seeing doctors die, and another one yesterday. This is a naive question, but please, you've heard many from me before. Don't they take any special precautions? I mean, do they wear special clothing, hazmat type suits? How are our doctors dying?
They do, but a lot of them got exposed. Once this epidemic got out of hand, they had to. Every health professional in these communities have been involved with not only treating these people, but they've been exposed before they even got involved with this. And unfortunately, yes, if you use, protective mechanisms, just like with Ebola, you'll be okay. But you really, are there enough really completely covering masks and device in China to deal with all this? Again, we don't know what precautions they've taken. Just remember the one doctor that blew the whistle, who died, 33-year-old doctor, was criticized and had to sign a document indicating that he committed a crime by spreading false rumors. So I'm not sure what precautions the Chinese have taken.
They'll be doing that.
They won't allow.
They'll be doing that in the White
CDC.
House soon, making people sign about fake news. It really is frightening, Doctor. If you will, just a little primer, and then we'll go on to other issues. You mentioned earlier how it's hard to fight viruses, and yet we've managed to cure some. What is the problem with viruses?
That we have not developed antimicrobials. Bacteria was easier to attack. They're living cells, and they have they're just like any other cell in the body. They can be attacked by the same mechanisms you would kill cancer cells. Viruses have a totally different structure, and they don't lend themselves to the antimicrobial attacks as do bacteria. And to date, this has been a real dilemma in medicine. Okay, we have not figured out a way to enter the center core of that virus and knock it out. And it's just biology. We have the biology of viruses, and how we treat them is still a work in progress. And it's obvious that we're not going to die of bubonic plague, but a virus. Just remember, if this virus was a little more virulent, we could be facing a more cataclysmic event. So, this is what disturbs me. We've had this conversation before, Bob, about mankind's proactivity versus reactivity. The human race worries me, because just as we debate climate change and we don't want to deal with the ramifications of fixing it or dealing with it, for all the nations of the world to get together to deal with this issue would require that the American CDC, the American Center for Disease Control, be allowed to go to China to help the Chinese people deal with this, right? But at this very moment, many of our scientists are denied entry into China, not for fear of their safety, but because the Chinese is a closed society, and they're unwilling to see, or willing to deal with the fact that we're one world. What happens in China is very important. What happens in New York and around the world. So the thing that's, I believe, the greatest obstacle we have in this world to solving any real problems is the inability and unwillingness of each society to see that we're part of the same. We're all humans, and we belong to the same planet. But you understand, even in America, with all this discord with Donald Trump and the Trumpies, anti-Trumpies, the world, and beginning in our neighborhoods, are so unable to say what is the common good without saying, oh, you're a communist or a socialist. There is a common good, and disease and the environment are two common goods that have to be seen in apolitical ways, and we've been to date unwilling to do so.
An interesting Pandora's box that this current president, may have opened up to the good. Some feel, and this was a piece I read yesterday, Doc, your reaction to it. The fact that the president has proven that he almost solely now has the power to declare an emergency. What happens if the next president, if you will, and that's perhaps not phrased right, declares climate change a national emergency, and now he or she can? That could change things quite a bit.
Yeah, well, you're going to get into the Supreme Court deciding whether, because an emergency, and a national emergency it's not a national emergency. It is a world emergency.
Doctor, I beg to differ. Under this president, it's an emergency if the president says it is, and it hasn't been challenged.
Yeah, well,
in other words, what's good for the goose? Good for the goose is good for the gander. But that's we can go and then endlessly on this, I'm sure.
We are on very thin ice in this country right now, because we're challenging the very principles we thought we lived by.
Yep. Doctor, my monologue today was a tribute to the fact that a part of me has surrendered the democracy that we had, the Republican democracy that we had, is already dead. The question is, what will replace it? How will it evolve? It's done. There haven't been enough challenges. It's done. It's over. It's now the ends justify the means, in my view. It's over.
There's a wonderful song that's circulating on YouTube. It has all the founding fathers individually singing, "Please don't let democracy die." I would highly recommend. It is to the tune of American Pie, and it's sung by George Washington, John Adams. Please don't let democracy die. It is hysterical, it is biting, and it is absolutely joyous to watch, regardless of your politics.
Well, I have
so please.
I have a very well-established international government guy who says that we are evolving not necessarily away from democracy, but more towards a parliamentary form. It's just an interesting way to look at it. Anyway, Doctor, back to health, and I'm sorry to step on your words there. Excuse me for that. What else? What's in your quiver these days? I have a couple of items, but you first.
Two things, Bob. One is, this is just a demographic, amazing statistic in my own practice. You know, my practice, I've practiced periodontics for 47 years, and over those years, my practice population has grown, and many of them have aged. And so this week, I noticed that I had 5 90-year-old people in my practice in the same day. So I ran a little printout yesterday, and I now have 110 people in my practice, active patients, that are 90 or more, and 2 of whom were 100. Now, I ran the same
Whoa,
thing.
back up. 110 that are 90 or over? What do you have, the Fountain of Youth in your drill or something?
Well, I think I'm changing the name of my practice by my website from Dr. Save My Teeth to Dr. Prolong My Life.
Yeah, no shoot.
All I can tell you, I mean, this is interesting. I mean, I'm trying to get I'm in a little suburban community in Briarcliff Manor. I'm not in Palm Beach, Florida. Okay, so we have normal. Most people around me are working class people who are not old. But obviously, when I ran this number 5 years ago, there were only 65 people. So within 5 years, I went from 65 to 110, and it's a wonderful statement about life, about medicine, but it also throws into the mix the economics of an aging society that lives now decades past their age of Social Security and when they began Medicare. And so when all these discussions go on about Medicare for all, nobody wants to discuss the economics of healthcare, period. Let's not talk about availability. In my opinion, the conversation should be the following. How can we pay for good health care for all Americans in light of technology, lifestyle, and the longevity of individuals? The stuff about Medicare for all and this one, it was someone who couldn't buy insulin, I get that. They're anecdotal stories that are terrible. I get it. But the existential problem is, how do we pay for this? Nobody talks about it. They're just going to take the rich, take money from this guy and give it to this guy. They don't have enough money. It's not enough. And it was interesting. One of my patients told me about a situation where she works for the city of New York, and she is a social worker. And when they closed a lot of the hospitals that were housing the mentally incapable, those couldn't live on their own, the city promised that all the money they would save by closing the hospitals would go into agencies such as hers to help them deal with it. We said every dollar went into the city budget and did not go to the agencies.
Of course, like
so
the lottery.
We raise money from the rich. Believe me, it's going to go into salaries and benefits and all the other stuff, and maybe some money will trickle down. The thing that drives me to drink when I watch these debates or these political conversations is nobody's willing to deal with the issue. It is all the politicized value of that issue to get them votes. And that's why I'm getting back to this place of I'm getting pessimistic. With all the openness, all the media, all the opportunity to listen and discuss, we do not discuss. We attack a man because he has some agreements with women that he might have been nasty about. We go on and on about how much money he has. And I get all that, but that's all game playing to avoid having him win so that I can win. We're back to Donald Trumpisms all over again on the Democratic Party. And again, it gets away from. It's no different. The more I see these folks, do I realize they're just a different version of the Republican Party?
Absolutely, and that's the point. That was the point of my monologue today, and I don't want to relitigate that thing. But our system is used by our politicians as a pretext to get elected, and it's now the ends justify the means have fully manifested themselves. And I don't know what the answer is, but I do. And I don't even call it pessimism anymore. I just call it a reality that the Republican form of government that we have has now choked on itself. It has failed. And where we go from here, I do not know. Because there are no real discussions about these issues. In fact, this evil part of me, Doctor, wishes that we'd have a Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump doing one-on-one, yelling each other and calling each other names, having Queens and Brooklyn face off against one another in an idiotic debate with no issues being discussed. It's sad. Anyway,
Bob, we may deserve it, and I'm afraid to say that after I watched the debate, I kept going. I started to turn it off, and I'm very interested. I was very excited to see that Michael Bloomberg would have a chance to express himself, and I realized that he himself lacks one thing, and that's the ability to really communicate. He's nothing about like Ronald Reagan. And when you listen as you think about this, I'm thinking about what do I want? I want a president who can be a leader. I'm not going to use the cauldron of Medicare for all, pay college tuition for everybody. That should not. The issue is, and I'm not saying they're not important issues, but what we need is one thing: a man or woman who can lead a nation and unify us. That's what we need.
Yes, Doctor. But
Medicare for all. Those other issues are peripheral.
Yes. Hence, though, that's why our system is failing, because that person, that magical person, cannot get elected because of the system that we have. And it's been evolving now for several years. The system that we have requires kowtowing to a base that puts what they want, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, what they want over the system that they've all sworn to live by. I mean, there's nothing else to say about it. It's failed. It is frozen up on itself, and it's going to take some incredible statesman or woman to change it, or group of them, because it can't work the way it is. And
Let me give you one of them.
Go ahead.
I'm going to give you a little caveat to support that in terms of the intellectual knowledge of people who should know better. I was at the school Wednesday teaching, and I was with a young student. She's a junior, and one of the professors, and a young professor. And I started playing the song "Don't Let Democracy Die" just to show them the humor. And so the other professor, a young man, probably 30, said, "Well, there's another side to this." I said, "Listen, I'm not telling you it's not another side. I'm just telling you that it's funny." Okay. And the young lady said to me something that really hit me really right between the eyes. And she's a bright kid. She went to a good college. She's now a very good student in dental school. She said to me, "I know nothing about geography, politics, or history." And I looked at her, and I said, "That's a serious problem."
A huge problem.
Because you are educated. You're in the top, 5% of the educated people in America. Where does that leave us? Do you think you're living in a vacuum where you can just go into your little dental practice and the world will not bite you in the rear end?
Doc,
and I really was shocked.
I've been asking this question of everybody all week. In your heart of hearts, what percentage of Americans do you think understand the difference between a Republican form of democracy versus a direct democracy versus a parliamentary democracy?
Oh, I would say you'd be lucky if you got 1 or 2%.
But you see, because the parliamentary, the form of government that we have has failed, and how can you explain to someone that it's failed if they don't know what it is? Because what's happened, and this is the thing that I've been fighting now for a couple of years, and a theme that runs through this show, which is that if everything is about, quote unquote, it's just politics, giving people what they want, which always has to be there, but the addendum should have been give them what they want within this system. For example, right now, Trump is very highly supported by his party, and the reason is because of the economy. But that can't be enough. It isn't enough just to have money in my pocket and a job. Does that mean then that I just forego everything that this country ever stood for?
Yep. Yeah. Bob, for many people, that means enough. When I've had some people in my own family say, "Well, what about your 401k plan? How's it doing? What do you want to give that up?" And therefore, what you mean to me is that I have enough money because the stock market went up. Does that mean to me that I shouldn't care who leader is? I mean, didn't Germany try that once in 1993? In 1933, haven't we been there down the road? But again, we're using the same kind of thinking or lack thereof. There's a very famous quote, a book I read called Naziland, and it was the collective writings of all of the journalists and diplomats living in Germany in 1919 to 1939. And one particular individual, a very astute journalist, wrote in 1920, she said, these are the words, I fear for the future of the German people. Although highly intelligent, they seem to lack common sense, and I believe they will someday be led by a demonic leader down a wrong path. 1920.
Well,
it was reflecting on the culture of Germany. I think someone's going to write something about the culture of America that will start to explain after God knows where we're going to go, how it happened.
Let me share a metaphor with you, because what America's becoming, apropos of what you said about your 401k, do you know one of the things that always troubles me when I go to, and I haven't in a while, but gone to the Caribbean on vacation, particularly the Bahamas, and one of the more overrated places on the planet. But still, it could be Jamaica, it could be any one of these other places. You're riding in a bus from the airport, and you see poverty, you see destruction, you see decay, you see homeless, but you're in this bubble of a bus, and you're the privileged, and you've done well, and you arrive at whatever it is. It could be the Princess or the Atlantis or whatever it is in these places. That's not okay. I mean, it's okay when you're going on vacation, but it's not okay to be doing well and riding in the streets of Seattle or New York City and seeing people starving and hungry who don't have health care. Now, I'm no socialist, but something's gone wrong with our values, my friend.
I thought along those lines, I had this conversation with a friend of mine who's a real capitalist, and I said to him, about a minimum wage, and no one's giving me a good answer. I said, the president, the CEO of McDonald's makes $30+ million a year. The guy at the bottom who's flipping the hamburgers probably makes $8, $9, $10 an hour maybe.
Mm-hmm.
What would it be socialism if the leader of McDonald's and the top executives went from 30 million to 20 million and down, and the guy flipping a hamburger got $15 an hour, so we can have a living wage? Is that a perversion of capitalism?
Wow.
That people living wage, so you can take home $10 million less a year? I mean, or a baseball player has to make $35 million a year, so I have to pay $300.
And doctor, the government is supplementing places like McDonald's and Walmart because a lot of the people that work there are on food stamps. So think about, we don't really look at it that way, but it's all about politics and getting elected. Something's gone wrong. Doctor, anything else you want to add before we send you on your way?
Bob, I just want to again reiterate what I'm coming from, because I really, now that this demographic of my patients and seeing 110 people over 90 and seeing their dental issues and their medical issues and the long list of things they bring me, that I have charts and charts of how many drugs they're taking. I'm going to say this again to our audience in the great quote of Henny Youngman, when he said, if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. Because folks,
yes.
The problem is when you get older and maybe you don't know how spry as you were. If your mouth is falling apart as a young person, you're going to have a disaster when you're older. If you're obese when you're 40, you're going to have real medical issues. God gives you long life. You're not going to have a good 90. You're going to be the 90 in the wheelchair or the walker. So please, folks, Henny Youngman was right. Take good care of yourselves.
Dr. Victor Sternberg, thank you very much. The longtime star of politics in your health. He graces us each and every Friday. When he's done teaching, we're going to get his full show back on. You know it so. Doctor, thank you so very, very much, and have a great weekend.
You're welcome, Bob.
Take care. Dr. Victor Sternberg, everyone. He's already on the line, and we're waiting for him. The very fine publisher and editor of the Yonkers Tribune. Again, one of the people whose work inspired this radio station, Hezi Aris. He will be with us in just a few moments. We need to do a little bit of a reset, though. Yes, it's 9:03. The temperature's up to 28. It's going to not get much higher. It's going to get up to 33 today, and that's about it. The sun is shining brightly. We'll have sunshine all day, averaging out about 33 tonight. Clear skies, 22. It'll feel like 10. But good news for Saturday, more sunshine, but better temperatures. It gets up to 46 Sunday. It gets even better. It gets up to 50 and still more sun. Alrighty, that weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. The top of the hour is also supported by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne and Kahn, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and Dominic's Fine Cigars. And things are coming together very nicely because we're coming up on 9:05, and we don't mind getting to this gentleman a few minutes early. Without further ado, we've already explained and told you who he is. Please welcome Hezi. Good morning, Hezi. How are you?
Good morning, Bob. What a pleasure to have you.
It's always a pleasure to have you, sir. A couple of stories this week. We noted them as they came up. Police officer in Yonkers. We're always hearing these stories out of the police department. We wanted you to wax a little bit more about that. We know you've had your, as we say in hockey, you've gotten your sticks up with them a few times and even had to throw off the gloves in terms of the stories that you've written. And also now, last night, we had Mayor Mike Spano spiking the ball, perhaps for good reason, over a plea deal that he did with a landlord. What's going on, Hezi Aris, in your town?
Well, there's a lot. Certainly a lot revolves around the police department because they earn so much money. They threaten a lot of people. The crime statistics have gone through the roof, even though you won't hear about it. And it goes on and on. It's just a prefabrication of wishes rather than a reality. And Yonkers knows the reality, but they're also very much afraid to speak up. And you get corroboration of the mirage that they talk about in the way they want to talk about it from other media, because the other media is afraid of repercussions from the city. The other media is concerned about not getting the advertising that is appropriate for them to keep up their business. And also some others just simply don't know and are unaware. It takes many years to be able to dig into exactly what's going on in the city. And even I think I'm really quite good at it, I don't know everything that goes on. And but it's very, very deleterious. We're not doing as well as we thought. Like one of the issues you talk about, the police, New York City is probably one of the best run police departments probably in the world.
On the planet, yes.
And there are issues, of course. Society is very big, and there are all kinds of people who are angry or upset or want to take advantage, and they do. They do it in New York. Is anyone not going to move into New York thinking it's unsafe? It's probably very safe. And except that all of a sudden now we've got something crazy going on where people are shooting people in the trains and blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on. And it doesn't matter where you are. You could be in a bodega in the Bronx where somebody will shoot a Yemenite a guy, a Yemeni worker, just because they want to, for no other reason. They talk about bigotry. But in Yonkers, we're the soft underbelly of New York City. So is Mount Vernon. Every community in Westchester County that abuts the city of New York is the soft underbelly of what they don't happen to imprison in New York City. Because where do they go? They come up here because we don't have the police forces they have in New York City. We can't manage all that crime. And yet our police commissioner, the new one that just got installed, God help us, he got rid of CompStat. That's a system where it advises you where crime is happening.
What, Hezi? I'm shocked. Why did he get rid of that?
Because he's really not quite competent. What he's basically doing is he's trying to hold the budget in line. However, he's blown right through it. And he's not blown through it because he's doing the police work that he should be allocating from here to there. He's really blowing it because he's been allowing people to pension pad all these years. As the police chief, which is one rung below the police commissioner, it was he that decided how much overtime people would get, not the police commissioner himself. Well, so what he did was he let them pension pad for the last 5 years, and many of them are retiring at over $250,000.
Yeah, as you know, that
Think about all the whole overtime. You've seen that in the Journal News. They did an exceptionally good job in writing it up.
They really did. You know what's always driven me crazy about that? In the classic culture wars that we get to, I've always been disappointed that one of the organizations, and I'm not anti-police by any stretch, but who wave the flag, who have conservative values, who talk about people getting stuff they didn't earn or stealing from the government or the government wasting money, and then they go and pad their pensions and suck the public dry. That's one of the great paradoxes of my doing the news. Is what?
Well, you know, you're 100% on target, except that, just like you were mentioning with Dr. Victor Sternberg only a couple of moments ago, and he realized what was going on in the medical profession. Well, it's also happening in regular life.
Yes,
and that becomes a problem. The indecency of it all, where people are aware of what's going on, like he mentioned, or you mentioned, that Walmarts and other companies are subsidizing the wages of the people that work for them.
Yeah, the government is.
If we would stop giving them the corporate welfare, then maybe they would be able and be forced to employ people at a going rate. And $15, hey, how far can you go with $600 a week, assuming that you're even that, well, and then after they take out taxes, can you even pay rent anywhere that you know in Westchester County?
No.
Well, so what good is it? We are spending more money subsidizing corporate America than anybody else.
And it's done indirectly.
That's where the anger comes in, because I think everybody, no matter where they stand in the totem pole, economic totem pole, they are willing and able, and if they're able to work, they want to earn a buck, a normal way, not by stealing, but sometimes we even deny them a job.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
How do you make a living?
Remember
that guy Garner who was trying to sell Lucy's in front of a store?
Absolutely. We all
know. He died because of his poverty, not because. Well, of course, the thing that exacerbated it, made it prominent, was the cops told him not to sell it there, and he was so desperate, so he's selling Lucy's, which are like cigarettes. I guess at 50 cents a
Yeah, we used to have them when I was a kid.
Whatever.
For a quarter, you can go in and get 2 cigarettes and a pack of matches and go 3.
Okay,
we
well,
called them Lucy's.
there you go. But the bottom line is, the people in very poor communities don't have job opportunities. Look at Yonkers. What are we doing to employ people in Yonkers? We talk a good game. Where are the jobs? Show me the jobs.
Well, the only jobs are in government, it seems. And one of the things I'm learning in your city is that's the main employer.
It is the only main employer, because we, as the city of Yonkers, with the Board of Education, which is the only purpose of taking it over, was to get control of the people who work at the Board of Education, so that if you're the guy that cuts out the check for them, they'll vote for you.
Well, let me ask you something, and I realize it's an historical question, but whenever I drive around Yonkers covering a story or whatever, there are some wonderful, when I say wonderful, they're all worn out now, some beautiful factories and construction sites. When I say construction, I mean whether it was cement or whatever. You've got some beautiful empty facilities there. What businesses were there, and where did they go?
Well, a lot of it happened in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1950s was the transitional stage in the economic arena. And it didn't just happen in Yonkers, it happened everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It happened in New York City, it happened in Westchester County, it happened in the whole metropolitan area. What happened was that it became too expensive to fend off less expensive places to operate. So if you could pay your people less down south, then that's where you went. And that's what gutted out Maine, and that's what gutted out all those, and gutted out Yonkers. We fell apart. at one time, Yonkers in the 50s and 60s was one of the most preeminent places in the metropolitan area. People from New York would come up to Yonkers to go to the haberdashery, to get to the women's clothier, to buy things up here. It was so sophisticated. And then when the what do you call it? There was a factory, the factory that did the garment. It wasn't a garment. It was.
It'll come to you.
It'll come to me later. I'm
senior
sorry,
moment, folks. But go ahead.
Yeah. So definitely a senior moment. So it turned out there was a major factory, and that was the engine that drove the economy in Yonkers. That was at the lower end. However, they were working. They had money to spend. They could afford their housing. And then when that thing fell apart, it was all over. Everybody left Yonkers, and we have never been able to bring back any of that. The employers are not here. We just don't have them.
Well, how much of it, again, we say people go down south, and they have, but let's look north for a little bit. If you go up through the I call it the Rust Belt of central New York, there's some farming up there. It's got to have the oldest housing stock on the East Coast. You never see a new house go up. You see barns falling down. The downtowns are dilapidated in all those counties, but we see space. We see colleges. What killed that? Because we can't go north either. Why only the south? Why is it because they don't have the social construct, the welfare states we do?
Well, why they go to the south as opposed to the north. A lot of it may be to do with climate. Also,
well, it does.
They pay less.
Yeah.
But
the houses cost less. You don't have to. I've got friends that are retiring to South and North Carolina. They're getting 5 times the house for 1/3 the cost. It's absurd.
Exactly. That's exactly right, and that's why people go there. So, and in the same way, that why do people buy products from the United States, but now they're not doing so. So now they're buying it from Brazil or Argentina. Same thing. It's all a question of economics. And if you can't build an infrastructure that makes it work, then you don't have it. Like New York State wants to build a tremendous infrastructure because infrastructure is everything. If you don't have infrastructure, you can't get from here to there.
That voice you hear, I got a reset here. It's at 9:16. That voice you hear is that of Hezi Aris, the managing editor and publisher of the Yonkers Tribune. Hezi's one of the people who's out there where the rubber meets the road, investigative reporting and so forth. You knew him before that from the Westchester Guardian, always, though, holding on to the Yonkers Tribune that he still manages. Hezi, continue with this.
I forgot that was the carpet mill, is what they called it.
Oh, yes, okay.
In Yonkers.
I'm just flabbergasted at that, and because it does cost so much to live here in Westchester County that the people that are in support of service jobs have to travel long distances from Rockland or New York City, or the Bronx is a little less. I wanted to turn we'll come back to Yonkers in a minute, but I'm sure you've noticed, and you did a wonderful story 2 weeks ago about it. Incredible as it seems, Mount Vernon seems to be picking up right where it left off, with the mayor fighting with the comptroller and the city council president making decisions that are almost by fiat. What can that city do to save itself?
What it can do to save itself is usually at the helm. And I haven't lost faith in Sean Patterson Howard, who's the mayor, to do the right thing and to put things in order. And even though everybody in Mount Vernon knows everybody else, as they do in Yonkers, as they do in Scarsdale, as they do in Portchester, it's a very, very tight little community wherever you are. So everybody knows everybody's little shtick and game plan. The bottom line is, when the man or the woman at the top tell you that this is not going to make it and they won't tolerate it, they will find a way to minimize these sort of miscreants that are out there that are trying to undermine an entire city. What's fascinating about it is that in Mount Vernon, you think that people don't know what's going on. They know full well what's going on. There isn't one trick you can pull on the people that they are not aware of. And they are up to snuff. They may not say anything because they're also concerned about retribution. And, there's no opportunity to get a job. Why do you think that when people do get a job, they're silent? There's nothing they can talk about. And then also you have to understand the falsehood of so many things. They came down. There was a woman that was let go. She was in the clerk's office.
Yep.
And they said there were no complaints about her. Hey, who was it that would complain about them? Nobody. Not the previous administrations, right?
They say it was political
and so
retribution.
Nobody said a word, and they have a stellar reputation. Really?
Yeah, what they're saying is that this woman was removed from office because she supported Andre Wallace in the last election, which is incredible.
So is there anything different around the world? I mean,
no.
What is it? Like all of a sudden Mount Vernon becomes an aberration because this was permitted to happen? Oh, come on, grow up already. Not you. I mean, everybody's got to grow up. It's that simple. What do you think? You think that if you're an outlier against the administration in Yonkers or Mount Vernon or anywhere else, that you're going to be able to get away with it? Usually you can't.
Clearly not. Now, what about, let's take a look at the county as a whole. Where do you think we're headed? You see where it looks like the county's going to, it lost didn't lose it, but it's been told by a judge now to go and settle its dispute with Standard Amusements.
Right.
It seems like we go from one extreme to the other. Do you have a take on any of that? Have
What do you
followed
mean?
those stories?
What do you mean in what extreme
well,
to the other?
For the 8 years that Rob Astorino was in, he did everything for good or ill, did everything but burn the furniture to never raise taxes. And the place was gutted. And, like as you do, I had a source deep in their account, in their financial department, a Republican conservative force. And I was shocked, source, when that person said, thank God the guy's gone. We couldn't hire anybody. The numbers were turning sour. We were in trouble. Yet people were happy with the tax cuts. It makes one wonder, do we really need county services?
Oh boy, you just landed on a gold mine of worthiness that hasn't been said for many, many years. I remember 20 years ago when John Spencer, who I came onto the scene when John Spencer had another year or two to go, and the end of his 8 years. So he brought up the fact that it made no sense whatsoever for a county government to be in place because Yonkers certainly never got anything out of it. And so what was the value? And other communities did. But there are some other places that required it, but we certainly didn't. And we shouldn't have even been involved with it. But, somebody decided they want to go this way. But it is just another layer of government. And you tell me, of all the people who are Westchester County Board legislators, tell me what they do. You tell me one thing they've accomplished, because I haven't seen anything when they were working under the administration of Astorino, nor do I see anything being accomplished under the auspices of Latimer.
Now, there's also
sound good, but what have they done?
There's also a paradox here. For example, if you go out to Long Island, there are Nassau particularly, there's Nassau County Police. You don't have 70,000 police departments. Conversely, though, they do have the county in charge. You go to Connecticut, then they don't have county government. I don't know that there's any answer, but someone who's been on the scene longer than I have, what's your take?
No, there is nothing to take. There is no take here. I don't care what they do in Long Island, and I don't care what they do in Connecticut. The question is, what are we doing here in Westchester County? And you show me one item, just one item, that makes it worthwhile for us to be under the auspices of county government. Tell me where that is appropriate. Give me one thing of one legislator has done that even allows them to deserve the money that they earn.
Well, they get a nice raise. They make $75,000.
I don't care what they make.
And they show up one day a week.
What do they bring back? I'm not arguing with you.
Oh, no, I am bringing that up.
There is nothing that they do that is of value to us. Because wherever you live, whether you live in wherever it is in the county, what do they return? Just what do they return?
I can't.
They don't bring in the money. they don't bring in the infrastructure, what are they doing?
I want to move to another issue, and I'll let that
Okay.
stand out there. No, I'll just let it stand out there rhetorically.
Okay.
You recently, I do believe you had on your program Elliot Engel. Okay.
No, he's coming on today.
He's coming on today, right?
Yeah.
What's going to be the format for that? Where, in what direction is that going to go?
Well, I think what I wanted to do simply was to ask him about different positions that he's taken in order to understand the value of his conduct in office.
Go ahead.
So he's got different issues. He's promoted and created the legislation, the laws that he's brought forward. He's gotten support from other members of the House. In some cases, the issues that I'm going to be talking about with him are the ones that succeeded and passed in the House.
Mm-hmm.
The question now becomes, now that the House has voted for it, will the Senate vote accordingly? And that's the way the process is.
Mm-hmm.
So he can just go so far. He's accomplished as much as possible in the House of Representatives, and now it's up to the Senate to decide if these are credible issues. The idea today is, in order to get something passed, it's got to be credible, and it's got to win both sides of the aisle.
And that's so difficult
including
today.
The majority in the Senate that is Republican, and the majority in the Assembly is Democrat. And that's the divide. And that's where we find ourselves at the moment.
Well, speaking of our local Congress people, did you see last night Nita Lowey endorsed Michael Bloomberg, which I thought was early and kind of a surprise. Did you have any reaction to that?
I didn't notice that she supported Bloomberg.
Yeah, it's official now.
Okay.
What's your reaction to
that? He's done very well. He came from nothing. Individually and amassed a fortune. He's worth now $60 billion, all by his own intellect and capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And then he jumps into the presidential election race, and he starts at nobody even knew him, and then he invested a fortune of money, and before you know it, he was already on the stage for the first time in Nevada, which is terrific. And then everybody came out against him because that's what suited them.
Well, I think they shot their load, to be honest with you.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, the real question in all of this show is, okay, fine. You want to try to destroy Michael Bloomberg? Go for it. That's exactly what they did. Except the question is, do you want to get Trump reelected? If that's the case, then I guess maybe you could push Bloomberg out because the rest of you guys are not making it.
Yeah, that was my sense.
Even Bernie Sanders.
Yep.
Bernie Sanders used to win. 4 years ago, he won New Hampshire was, I guess, 80 or 90%, and Vermont, the same thing. And all of a sudden, Buttigieg comes in, and now all of a sudden, Bernie Sanders is only able to get 25 or 50% of what he used to get. So what does that tell you? That tells you that despite the fact that he's got a big mouth and is a cantankerous old man with a finger-pointing attitude, and he's a bigot, he's a freaking bigot. And that's another thing that nobody talks about.
Say more about that, Hezzy Harris.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you could listen to some of the stuff that he's talking. He's looking for votes. He'll sell his rear end for votes.
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, imagine saying it should be illegal to be a billionaire. How anyway, you know what? I just thought of a phrase I want to run by you for no other reason than fun. Do you remember? Now, Hillary Clinton stuck her foot in it, but it stuck. She used the term deplorable. I think the rest of the Democratic field, save maybe Joe Biden, should be called the unacceptables. They're way too far to the left.
That's an interesting, spin on words. Look, the problem is that that's too political, whereas the other one, the deplorables, were the ones, we don't really give a hoot what they think or what they do. And that is the ruin of this country.
Yes,
you cannot regard
Yep.
people as deplorable
That's
just
correct.
because they don't live on one coast or the other.
That's correct.
And if you treat people like crap, then that's exactly what you're going to get. And it's wrong to to even think that these people are deplorable. If you think there are deplorables out there, then why are you running?
Well, that's exactly
office?
right. Do you know that's what I get asked a lot. What some of my issues with Donald Trump are, and you know the one that I don't talk about enough, and it's almost personal.
Okay.
But I don't feel, I'm always looking for, and again, I know I have this rose-colored glasses thing on, and it's a part of who I am, but I'm always looking for inclusion. And I feel it right down to my bones, that someone like myself my living requires me to have a critical mind. Someone like myself who has an appreciation for the process, who doesn't want to feel rejected, is excluded by his intent. He could care less. And it's one thing I loved about Ronald Reagan, even when I didn't like his policies, I never felt that he was excluding everybody, although he probably was. But there's a certain... a visceral sense that he doesn't want to cross the aisle. He doesn't want to be forgiving. He doesn't want to have a sense of oneness in this country.
Well, I don't know if that's.
I'm not saying it's so.
Okay,
I'm just telling you how I feel.
It's very hard to define a Trump because he's an opportunist. And whatever works for him at any particular time is what works for him. And unfortunately, we don't have people, whether in the same party or in an alternate party, that have the intelligence and eloquence to give expression to it in an appropriate way. Think about the real reality. The reality is quite different than what people think. Mm-hmm. We don't have a Democrat that is strong enough to evidently fend off someone like a Trump, because they don't have a plan. Their only plan is to undermine the President of the United States. Mm-hmm. But what is the logic behind supporting the Democrats if you don't have a plan? Where's the vision? You got none. The only vision you have is to get rid of the President of the United States. Fine, he got voted in. It's not anybody's fault, but that's the way it is. Mm-hmm. Maybe you shouldn't have called people deplorable. Mm-hmm. Who cares if you won the vote because the majority voted for you? Well, that's when we had the Electoral College. Get it together. Mm-hmm. You could have done this in the 1950s too if you wanted. Now they're contemplating doing it in the future. Okay, so the reality will change.
And you know what? But she also could have campaigned a lot harder in those states as well. She
was a lazy, person who thought that it was all coming to her. And you know what? She was a failed candidate, because if she was any good, even if she didn't go out there as much as she could have or should have, then she would have won. But she wasn't. She was a failed character, and she's failed to this day. And where is she? Isn't it interesting? She knows Biden. Where's the support for Biden from her? Where's the support for Biden from President Barack Obama? Not that I care for Biden. I don't care for him at all. But that doesn't matter. Where is the support? Where is the closeness? So was it all a fraud, what they said when they were in government? Probably.
Interesting.
You have no standards.
Now,
but the thing that's interesting is President Trump is defining the race, because he's saying, you want to take me on? Take me on. But so far, no one's been able to take him on.
Well, Bloomberg's trying. Now, a broader question about Bloomberg.
Bloomberg might succeed.
Yeah, a broader question about Bloomberg. See, I happen to think he can be elected, and I argue with people all the time about it. Now, I
think he's electable, and I think he could win.
Have people finally set aside the fact that, because people say, well, they'll never elect a Jew down south. That's a blunt term. See, I think finally those days have passed.
I don't know. There was a time when there was the Connecticut guy. I forgot his name now. He wanted
Lieberman.
To run for, Lieberman. He was running for vice president or something like that. President. I don't know if there's so much bigotry against an individual that happens to be Jewish running for political office. Hey, how come we don't ask that question when it comes to Bernie Sanders?
I say that every day.
Because he hates Jews so much?
Hezi Harris, you're a gem.
Well, hey, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Otherwise, I should, at my age, I should just say goodbye. But I think I'm
don't
still relevant.
you dare. I got to take a quick break. You stay right there. When we come back, you know what people want to hear about?
What?
And I certainly want to hear about some of your hesitorials and what drives them and some of the recent ones. When we return, we're with Hezi Aris.
Okay.
It's time to take a break. It's 9:33, and it is, well, you know what? It's still cold out there, but not too cold. It's 30 degrees. I think I got it right this time. It's going to get up to 33 today. Sunny, getting down to about 30 tonight, but with the wind chill, it'll probably still a little colder. But look forward, it'll feel a little colder. But look forward to tomorrow, because the temperature will get up to the mid-40s with more sunshine. And the real treat, Sunday, we get up to 50, still with more sunshine. And the weather, of course, brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. The bottom of the hour is supported by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, and pluginvirtualreality.com. Hezi Aris, as you know, is the managing editor and publisher of the Yonkers Tribune. We're hitting him with a wide range of issues today, but he covers the Bronx, the Yonkers, rather, like no one's business, but also the rest of the county. And what's nice about Hezi, if you go to his website, by the way, if you go to his publication, unlike a lot of other local publications, it's not all ads. You actually can read the thing and take your time. And sitting in the doctor's office, you got an hour and a half wait, you'll have plenty to read. And it covers all aspects of life and political life. Please welcome back Hezi Aris. You have returned, sir.
Yes, sir, I have. I'm very happy about your weather forecast. That made me really feel good.
Yeah, we need
like
sun.
sun.
Nice day to go out for a little walk.
Exactly.
Hezi, you are very bold and brash and etc. with your.
Blame my parents.
Blame
my
your parents.
They taught me a certain way, and I can't break it.
Nor
do I want to.
With your editorials, known as hesitorials.
Right.
And by the way, I digress. A beautiful woman just walked in the studio, but she's the wife of my partner in crime here, so I have to be nice.
Oh, okay.
It's Mrs. Jake. Anyway, what drives that? Where do you get your ideas? What do you write about? And look, it's no secret, and we won't get into any of it because it involves the law, but you've even been sued for some of your hesitorials.
Oh, I am being sued.
Yeah.
Just so you know, quickly, I was supposed to be in court this past Wednesday, and so it was only 2 days ago, and I went there, and it turned out that the opposition decided to withdraw the deposition process. So I was supposed to be there on Wednesday, where they were going to be deposed by my lawyer, and then on Friday, which is today, when I was going to be deposed by them. So they postponed all of that, and which I can't imagine is going to make the judge very happy. But whatever the case is, so the judge is going to, so the deposition will now be taking place next week, Thursday of them by my lawyer and me by them on Friday. So, these are the games that they play. So we'll have to see what goes on. And then you want to know what drives my articles?
Yes, I do.
My articles are driven by a desire for something better. Not because, I've colored glasses and I want everybody to have a better shake of things. What I'm looking for is how do you immerse yourself in a community that I care about? If I didn't care about Yonkers, I wouldn't write about it. I could have left a long time ago. I write as eloquently, if not even more eloquent than many people you'll find in many publications across the nation. I can write at the best level, and I do. And I've never diminished my language for anybody. You know what? I was brought up on a dictionary. If I didn't understand a word, and I didn't, then I would look it up. And you know what? I got smarter that way. And that's what I'm doing. I'm passing along what I know works. And that's what I'm looking for in a city like Yonkers. For example, we have a waterfront. Beautiful things are going on there. But who are the idiots that allowed a building to go up where there are no services whatsoever at the bottom of the building? No cleaners, no gym, no coffee shop, no place to buy food, no place to go to a bar or to a restaurant. Who plans like this?
I know.
Well, it's not tolerable. So what I wrote recently in an article called the Blue Truth article, Yonkers from the Top Down, an amalgam of spin and reality with a dose of hypocrisy.
I love that one. Please, I love that article.
Well, that was so complete. I don't think you could walk away from that and say, I'm still hungry for more. The bottom line is, though, what's interesting is when I write to the public, but I also write to government, because I do share my thoughts with government, whether they like to hear it or not, on the down low, real quiet, mano a mano, so that nobody gets embarrassed. And then when I find out 3 months later or 6 months later they haven't done squat about it, then you know what? Then it's time for the public to really know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for example, this article mentioned that CompStat, which was a way to find out where there was a need for police oversight.
Yes.
They got rid of it. And we explained that earlier today. But you know what? It's coming back. You know why? Because I wrote this. I moved their rear end so fast they don't know what hit them. Because they understand that once the public knows the crap that they pull on them, which is deleterious to our society, then they better get it together. And that's the way I function. I function out of love for the city of Yonkers because I love it.
I know you do.
I love the people. I just ache for them. You know why I ache for them? Because I do not see the community of Yonkers, all of them. I don't care where you sit on the economic strata. You have no life. You have no choice. No option in life. You've got to do what you're told to do, or you're finished.
Well, it's an important role of the Fourth Estate to do editorials. Absolutely. Now, do you endorse candidates officially? Because people.
Yeah, I do. But I have to learn about them. And you know what I find really, really, really pathetic? It was so funny. Last week, I got somebody that wanted to know if I'd be willing to post something, and they didn't know where I stood on the political divide. I said, you know what? It doesn't really matter where I stand on the political divide. What matters is that I do not censor what goes on the Yonkers Tribune. I do not diminish what goes on the Yonkers Tribune. I do not malign it in any way. I give everybody an opportunity to give expression to what they believe, because that is where we live, in a society that has ideas and concepts. And you know what? If you want to win your way in the community that reads the Yonkers Tribune, and we are huge, bigger than anything else you'll see in all of Westchester County, including the Journal News, then you could talk about it here. And anyone who believes that I will lean one way or the other is mistaken.
Well, I think
I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican or an independent or anything else you want to define it as.
We've seen that over the years. You're hard to define, and you do call it as you see it. Now, what is your response to your editorials? What kind of response do you get? Do you get back to the people who write you back, or do you just okay? What do you do? How do you?
The reason I don't get back to them is because I knew years ago. I learned that. People were watching the website, and when you posted, your name was there, your email address, and your IP address.
Mm-hmm.
That was years and years ago.
Yes.
Then I got sued by somebody, Dr. Cavallo in the Independence Party.
Yes, the Independence Party.
They wanted to get the IP addresses. I refused to give it to them. And I won, and the Journal News was also asked for IP addresses. They gave them up. I don't do that sort of thing. But that taught me a lesson, and that lesson was that I have to make sure that neither I know the IP addresses, my computer knows the IP addresses because it needs to know that, but I don't have access to that. And I've given my webmaster authority not to ever give it out,
Good.
even if I lose in a lawsuit. And my webmaster is out of state.
Good.
Go find him. You'll never find him. You'll never find him. Then I have an email address, for example, which is an encrypted email address. It's ehezi@hush.com.
Mm-hmm.
And all you have to do is send me something. Hi, I want to talk to you, or this is a test, and I'll send them back a response. And that once my response goes to them, it will be an encrypted response, so that any future communication I have with them is encrypted and unchallengeable by anyone, because nobody has access to who's there.
Wow.
I mean, to the best of my ability. I mean, let's face it, they do break into the Department of Defense. I mean, so I could just do certain things, but I don't think that you can access that because it's one of the best, and it's not even in this country.
Well, that's good.
That's the beauty of it.
That is the beauty of it. Now, do you engage?
Oh, yeah, and then the other thing.
Go ahead.
The other thing is, I knew that some police officers who frequented, I guess, different places to eat, they were being shaken down by some people in the police department, and they wanted to know when those people entered a particular, I guess, eatery, if they were using their cell phones, and most people do. So what ended up happening, hold on for a second.
Is somebody beating you up?
No. So what ended up happening was that I ended up working with my webmaster. So if somebody should access, let's say, a coffee shop and visit my website,
Mm-hmm.
Most small eateries have a very low number of items that they could store in their server.
Mm-hmm.
But when you arrive at my website, even if you went through the server and it was discoverable at this eatery, they don't know what you looked at when you get to my website, and they don't know what you've done. They don't know if you left a message or anything, or if it was a mistake. Nothing. I've got it covered so smart, because you know what? I refuse to be kowtowed to these people who think they're so brilliant. Well, you know what? I'm not so brilliant, but I'm brilliant enough.
Well,
ask
brilliant
the right
enough
so I can get covered.
Brilliant enough is a nice way to put it. Now, I've noticed that you don't get engaged with the people that write into you or on Facebook and go back and forth with epithets and so forth. You avoid that as well, don't you?
Well, yeah, I don't have the time to be on Facebook. I'm busy writing. I'm so backlogged as it is. I'm embarrassed to say.
Aren't we all?
And
though?
there are limits to what I can do. So I don't go to Facebook, and I don't go to Instagram. I'm aware of it, and I can access it if necessary. But I don't.
But even if you had the time, would you enjoin that kind of debate? Because on Facebook, it's more accusatory than it is conversational.
Well, with us, you see, if you make a comment, we have tremendous amount of interest, and we have people who are constantly slugging it back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it. I don't know their names, so then I don't know who's who. But the conversation goes back and forth all the time. That article that we just mentioned had 43 comments, and it's still going strong.
That's wonderful. Hey, before
and then we have stuff that's got 200 or 300 or 400 comments.
I like that. Folks, I want you to look, Hezi, I want you to tell people where they can get, before you go, where they can get at your information, where they can get, especially your hesitorial, since that's this topic we've covered, and then who will be on your radio show today.
Well, it's real easy with us. You just go to any search engine, and you could look up YonkersTribune.com, one word, YonkersTribune.com, and then it'll take you to the site. And we cover Bronxville, Mount Vernon, Westchester County, as well as Yonkers, all under one name. And you could go to Bronxville Tribune, you could go to Mount Vernon Tribune, you could go to Westchester Tribune, all take you to that one place. And then we have a search engine, so you could put in Hesitorial, Hezitorial. I'm sure you could probably even find Hesitorial listed in a search engine, and it'll bring you to us as well. And that's how it is.
I want to thank you very much once again, Hezi.
Go ahead. I
ahead.
forgot to tell you because So if you go to the Yonkers Tribune today, you'll see on the upper right-hand corner on the front page that we're going to be doing an interview with Elliot Engel.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to come on at exactly 10, but he'll be on by 10:10. And then we'll be discussing about 3 or 4 of his latest proposals that have passed the House, and we'll discuss the efficacy of them.
Well, thank you very much, Hezi, as always. And again, I remind people that your work, you're one of the people who inspired what we do here. Thank you very, very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Have
Thank
a great
you.
show. All right, take care. Hezi Harris, everybody. All the best
Bye.
to you. Now, we've played some sweet music. We're not done yet. It's only 9:49. And we get occasionally some people break into the radio station. The security guards don't do their job. The security cameras don't work. And what we're going to do is put on both mics because, see, that sweet music, really what we really should be doing is playing something more ominous. I don't know, maybe. Yeah, let's try this since she's here. Mrs. Jake is with us. That's right, we're calling her Mrs. Jake. In fact, we're going to have her husband introduce her. Now, we've heard rumors from time to time that Jake Schaefer, coming from upstate, as he is, okay, that she may also have been a relative before they got married. We don't really know. Actually, please welcome, and we're glad to have you here. Hello, everyone. Jake, would you please introduce our guest?
It's the lovely Christina Schaefer.
Oh, lovely. No, come on. You're going to brownie points right here and now. Christina, welcome to the program.
Morning, Robert.
It's great. She hit me with the Robert. Oh, I have a weakness for that. Don't do that. Actually, thank you for stopping in. Christina is one of those people, there are people that now, on a serious note, that have always supported what we've been doing here since the beginning. And she came in when we were doing the construction and everything else. And I had met she and Jake back at my old radio station. First of all, I know that you support what we do here, and Jake talks about it. I want to thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
I know it's bad enough that we have his family going nuts. The Goobers up there in Syracuse, which is
They love it.
How you met.
They love the radio station.
Now it's time for you to dish because Jake's becoming quite a personality. Even though last week I made him his own species. I don't know if you heard about that.
No,
we were talking
it.
about diversity on one of the shows, and I said, well, Jake fits in somewhere. He's not Asian, he's not white, he's just Jake. It's like a whole species. So how did you meet him? And Jake, your mic's on, Jake.
So we met through his mom.
Oh, this is great. Oh, put on the mic. Yeah, go ahead. This dish.
So I worked with his mother.
You worked with his mother? Mm-hmm. Was this like a mental health?
We were best buds.
You and his mom are best buds?
Yeah, we were really close.
How did that happen? I mean, you're a young, hot chick.
I know. We just hit it off. And
was she a teacher as well? Or?
She was a teaching assistant in the district that I was working in at the time in Syracuse. Mm-hmm. And I just went over to their house after school one day, and Jake was home from California.
Oh, this is when he was Mr. Comedian. He was home from California?
He was home from visiting from California.
How did you overcome the initial shock?
I mean, I was not struck initially.
Stroke might be a better
Jake?
word.
She was smitten.
Jake's turning.
Jake thinks I was smitten. But
okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So that I just met him that way through his mom, and then it turns out that his grandmother, his mom's mom, Doris. Schaefer.
This
Doris
is his grandma.
Schaefer.
This is Doris Schaefer. Okay.
She worked for my dad.
Okay.
So there's all these connections.
At Agway.
The Syracuse connections.
Okay.
That
now
that you would say were related or
well, no, I
siblings,
understand all
cousins,
of that. I
whatever.
was thinking, lots of people marry their sister in some societies, so I'm not troubled by that.
Mm-hmm.
But what Jake's looking at me now. We have a mutual friend, and he's going to be petrified now. Matt Cahan.
Is he coming in?
No, not today. I wish he was, but Matt and I work together on Westchester Talk Radio, and we've become really good friends. Now, I've not met his wife yet.
Oh, we got to get her
but
in
is
here.
it true that he's petrified of Crash? Oh, great question.
I mean, that's not the impression we get. Do you get?
No,
that
come on, Jake.
She wears the pants in that family.
Wears the pants and the shackles.
She is. I mean, she's no nonsense, but she is.
I heard she's a ball, but I did hear though, and I hope she's listening. You guys teach? You're not working today, are you? Is she working today? Good. Hopefully she's listening because I understand that she drives a Lincoln.
She does.
Which wouldn't this be like putting an epileptic in charge of a china shop? No, I mean, she's crashed more cars than NASCAR.
I mean, he seems to have worse luck with the cars.
No, not him. She.
No, he does.
What do you mean?
Not crashing, but with the lemon laws. He always
with that car he uses for work?
He has multiple
cars you're right.
that he gets, and it's brand new, and it breaks down, within a month or two.
If he was an undertaker, nobody would die. No, it's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's true. He has a lot of difficulties with, so maybe it's just, the two of them have some problems with
obviously if they ever run like a fleet of cabs, we shouldn't invest in that, should we?
No, absolutely not.
I hope he's listening. He's going to hate us. Tell us a little bit about you, though. Again, you've been, and you're a good sport. I kid Jake and he kids me, and in fact, he's getting better at abusing me.
I did want to talk to you about the accent question that I asked you.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, because I haven't had time to call in. I'm usually...
You got a problem with that? What's the matter with you?
Well, I thought you were kind of insulted by it, but I was
asking I'm not insulted at all.
Question
no, I'm not insulted at all.
Because from upstate, well, first of all, my background speech pathology, that was my undergrad. Oh. So we talked a lot about, regional accents, and I have students that couldn't understand what I was saying.
Like water from upstate, the people from Buffalo, water,
right?
Pop. How does the word pop have two A's in it?
Pail.
Yeah.
A bucket or a pail or your friend, right? So there's no way that I distinguish those two. So I've worked really hard to not have that accent, but it's difficult.
It is difficult.
And I know that a lot of broadcasters, work to not, I don't know if you have speech lessons or anything
vocal
like
techniques.
that.
No, I worked the vocal techniques I worked on, and I did where I was kind of fortunate. My mom was very educated and had a great vocabulary. In fact, she could cut to the quick with words. Like I gained weight around the time I was 30, and I still feel the knife when she patted my stomach and said, "You're corpulent." Or another time she called me a reprobate. Okay, and she's very well spoken. Now I grew up, and my own brother, and this is no knock, very successful Wall Street guy, trader. He's still a Dems and Does, And I grew up with a lot of guys, and we all had Brooklyn accents. But early on, and even my educational career, running for office and being a public speaker and a writer, I had to clean it up a bit. But I can go both ways, and I leave a little bit of it. I mean, when if I'm doing a moderation on TV, I'm overly careful to enunciate. But I leave a little bit of it in the show, sure. Absolutely. But I'm not conscious of it on the air. There's a different part of my brain. In fact, you may find this interesting as a speech pathologist because so much involves brain chemistry and discipline. But I can come in the worst mood, in the worst shape, for whatever reason. Could have played hockey the night before, had a fight the night before, whatever, family issues. But the minute I hit the mic, there's a whole different part of my brain that takes off. It's very interesting.
That's great.
But so no, I wasn't offended at all. God, there is that doesn't offend me. In fact, I can switch totally into Brooklyn. Like I do the best Joe Pesci I know. Like, you think I'm funny? Well, what's funny about me? You think I'm funny? But now what I find interesting is, and people get accused of this in all walks of life. It could be black folks who use a street idiom, or Italians who use their street vernacular. But when I coach hockey, like when I was teaching, I teach for the New York Institute of Finance, and so I'm in a classroom with inspectors from the SEC, and I will say sometimes it is possible that a bad charge in account can be made inadvertently. Now, I don't think I've ever used the word inadvertently coaching a hockey team.
Right.
I say, what the bluff are you doing? And that, but it's not conscious. It's that environment, and that's how I react.
Right.
Now, how much of the? Tell us about speech
So
pathology.
I did that as my undergrad, and then I got a master's in reading. And so
what the hell is a master's in reading?
I just work under the special ed umbrella. I just say I'm a special ed teacher. So I work with students that have learning disabilities in the middle and high school level. And I just work with them. I co-teach 2 classes.
That's cool.
2 English classes,
That's
which
great
is
that
really
you do
fun.
that.
And then I have, a support class where I reinforce the curriculum and do study skills, work on writing, reading comprehension, So, it's great. I've been doing it for 20 years and I love it.
Funny that you say that. I still remember, very few times do we remember as a child having the classic epiphany. But if you remember, well, I'm a lot older than you, be kind. But I was in grammar school the first time I was asked to read out loud. Mm-hmm. And it just came natural to me. And I'm sitting there as I'm reading it saying, wow, I'm good at this. Because other kids would hesitate and couldn't pronounce words. And it all just came to me. And then, of course, my grandmother was later renowned for having said that I was vaccinated with a phonograph needle. But how early do you see that in people? For me, it came really early.
So that they can read, or
no, that they can read, not just cognitively, but that they were able to articulate it out loud. And
well, I think it's starting a lot younger now because I think they're doing a lot of the, letter awareness and rhyming, which is under the umbrella of phonemic awareness. So
what's that? What kind of awareness?
Phonemic awareness. So
phonemic awareness?
Yeah.
What's phonemic?
So
phonemic. You better explain
trying
that.
to pretend to be Irish.
It's where
phonemic
awareness. So instead of phonics, where that B says, like you look at the letter B and it says phonemic awareness is breaking down the sound. So understanding that each word is made up of different sounds. So cat is cat.
Oh, got you.
So breaking it down that way, and rhyming is a big piece of that. So if a child has difficulties rhyming, and hearing the difference between kit and cat, for example, because it's just different by one, that the middle sound. Sometimes that's an indicator that they might have difficulties.
That's interesting. Now, some people I've noticed, and this is a discipline that when you read the news, you really, really have to pay special attention to, is in each of the elements of a word, each of the phrases. Like, I have a dear relative that just can't get through Mediterranean. Because of all of the different segments of the word. What is that? What is that phenomena? Is it just a mental discipline?
I guess so. It's just something about the multisyllabic word that makes it
that's
difficult.
what I was thinking, the syllables. I couldn't think of the word. Thank you. Some people have trouble with multisyllabic words. What's interesting is what's happened over the years, even going all the way back to President Nixon, which I know you weren't born for, and I don't need to hear from either of you, is we who grew up in New York or Boston, who have tended to drop our R's off the years, over the years, have now become famous for putting them where they don't belong because we're self-conscious of it, But so what's the biggest problem you encounter with speech therapy?
With my students?
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue that I have right now is that the students have a really hard time. So I don't do speech
anymore,
like the
right,
articulation piece.
Right.
It's the language piece. So they have a difficult time understanding or breaking down the language of something.
Okay.
Or they just don't understand the way that it's worded. Right now I'm struggling with test taking. They have a really hard time taking what they've learned and applying it on a test because it's not just this memorization piece, it's an application. So they're having a really hard time with the social studies tests.
Why?
I think it's just too much information for them to have to understand and process.
Because it's fact-based.
They do, but it's not just what does this word mean? And, the questions are a little more complex. So sometimes I'll go through and just break down the question so it's a little simpler, or maybe change the wording of something if I think they won't understand a vocabulary word.
We're talking with Christina Schaefer, by the way. She is the long-suffering wife of Jake Schaefer, who fortunately has the right background to deal with him. And she's really been a supporter of the program, one of those people behind the scenes, and we're so glad that she stopped by. We're not going to go yet. We're going to go a little over because it's so good to see. I find this stuff interesting. I have a relative, and again, I try to be obtuse about this for reasons, but a younger relative who has certain learning disabilities in terms of reading came late, math came late. But yet this individual can tell you a story from A to B that person has invented with great articulation, sophistication in choices of words and meaning and depth. I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
I can't read a sentence, but do that. Finally, that person has come along. That must be fascinating to deal with.
It is. I think part of the process in educating the students themselves is highlighting just that, right? We all have difficulties in some area. And
she's looking at me. Well, I'll share two of mine with you. Maybe
but
you
know
can
what
help
I'm
me.
saying? So everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and so it's taking the time to really highlight their strengths and figure out how you can see what their learning style is and what their strengths are and be able to capitalize on that. I have some kids that are so musically inclined or talented, and so we'll talk about how that's their learning style, right? They could easily remember the facts if it was in a song, the way that Hamilton is.
Yes.
Right.
No, but that makes a lot of sense. I've often, in fact, whenever I think about things being syllable based, I think of birds. Now it may seem weird, but birds.
Yeah, it's weird.
Birds talk in a pattern. It is weird. No, but they have a pattern.
Right.
To the way they chirp. And we seem to have inherited places of that, even the way we store information. Like if ever I get a name wrong about someone, the name almost always has the same syllabic rhyme as something else.
Right.
Like Joe Christopher and Alan Foster, and they're like stored in the same place. It's really interesting stuff. Now I have two things. How do you cure these? I am one of those people who, and look, she's looking and enjoying this. I actually, when I was fortunate, when I was at Merrill Lynch, when I was in college, I was doing so well as a part-time employee at night, they hired me full-time and put me in a management training program. Except full disclosure, I failed the math test. And they had to grandfather me. And the only reason I failed it was a couple of questions there. And I still remember where it stopped, when I stopped paying attention to the multiplication table in 7th grade. If I see a number, now right now I could do it for business, but if I'm on a test and I see a number where the lower second digit is larger than the one on top, I panic. Oh God, 59 from 71. How do you take a 9 from a 1? No, of course you got to carry the 1. Panic just sets in. That's my first learning disability. And my other one, and it's very real, is I need to do things linearly. Like if you ask me if I'm using a dictionary to go to Lawrence, I almost have to page through A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J before I get to L. However, there's a corollary. I think I've inadvertently indicated to you, every book I've ever written or read, if you turn to the page, I can tell you where I was when I read it.
Really?
Or whenever I learned something for the first time. Like I learned the word ubiquitous when Sam Ervin was doing was the chair of the Senate Committee investigating Watergate. I learned the word reprobate when my mother touched me on the belly. So whenever I learned something new or read something, so you open up a book, oh, that's what I was doing. Or like I read, for example, this book, Me and the Spitter by Gaylord Perry. And I was I read it taking the ferry boat from Staten Island. What is that?
I don't know.
Just a strange goat, strange duck, weird personage.
You just remember those things in context, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know what it's. You're supposed to help me with this. I mean,
really
I'm crazy, and you're supposed to solve these things.
I'm on vacation this week.
Oh, you are? That's right, you are on vacation. So now you met. Let's go back to this before we send you on your way. I gotta have some fun with this. So you met his mom, but then he had to go back on the road and make people laugh.
Right.
Now, how did you get this thing
We stayed
cooking?
in touch a little bit and then lost touch for many, many years and then reconnected.
Okay. So you went back and made the same thing.
That was it.
Fiery, passionate.
I mean, I originally said we shouldn't date.
Why?
We were very different.
I was a reprobate.
Oh, fine. Yeah. Well, you know what? Now, you did something that most people would be afraid to. They say never marry a musician or a comedian. Mm-hmm. They're on the road. And, of course, I mean, quirky he is. I mean, he's a comedian. There's a lot of depth to him. There's a lot of sophistication. Mm-hmm. He writes well. I don't think I've ever seen him type anything, though. If he gives me notes for the show or good ideas. Read it? His handwriting?
It's kind of difficult.
Oh no, he can tell you. Mine makes he looks like a calligrapher compared to me. Yeah, I have worse handwriting. But he never types anything. Don't share my writing with her. Out my most deep secrets. Bread and milk tonight. Anyway. So how did you manage? I mean, is it really weird to live with a comedian?
I'm not a comedian any longer.
No, but they're filled with angst. They're filled with internal strife. Their moods change.
It's true.
You're really painting quite a picture.
So I mean, it's like being married to a drunk bull with a red cape in your hands. I mean, how do you do this?
I don't know.
Actually. Okay. So anyway, I want to thank you for coming in. It's just interesting to learn about what you do.
It looks great in here.
Yeah, it's really come along. Really coming along. Great. And do you like listening to Jake every day? He's gotten used to this format as opposed to standing on a stage.
I know. Yeah. He's great.
Oh, he's got a great voice.
And you're great as well.
Oh, well, thank you. It's a labor of love.
Our parents really enjoy listening to you.
Yes. Your parents too?
Yes.
The one that introduced you to Jake?
His mom.
His mom. Oh, his mom. Has she apologized yet?
No. She loves me.
I think they were upset.
Please. They're thrilled to have me.
The day that I said you two were actually sisters.
I know. I wanted to call in, but I couldn't. So.
You should have. All right. Listen, we got to go. But Christina Schaefer, thank you. And thank you for being a good sport. And thank you for supporting what we do here. We really appreciate it. Christina Schaefer, everybody. Jake Schaefer, thank you again. We have to go, but always we need to thank people. And I can read my own bad handwriting. We want to thank Vince Russo. We want to thank Anthony Galetta for stopping in. Janelle Albritton from the Westchester County Post, Steve Callis from the same. He's their sports guy. Jake, of course, Jake's picks, my picks. I'm doing really well, folks. You want to invest in me when I bet on hockey. City Councilman Al Tarantino, the good doctor Victor Sternberg, Hezi Harris, and of course, Christina Schaefer. The woman is being recommended for sainthood. She married a comedian recommended by his mother. She put him up for sale. She put him on eBay, for God's sakes. You too can have your own comedian at home for a price. And of course, up there in Syracuse and thereabouts, we have Jake's parents out there on the farm milking a cow, whatever you're doing. Thank you for listening today. I want to thank our sponsors, and I know them by heart because I took the sign down so I could put them on television. I want to thank Pena & Con, Plug-in Virtual Reality. Of course, our friends at United Hebrew and Dominic's Fine Cigars. Thank you very much for listening. We went a little late today. It was fun. We'll talk to you on Monday morning. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. I'm Bob Marrone. You've been listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. Have a great day. Remember now, it'll be cold today, but it is going to warm up over the weekend. Thank you so much.